3 years ago, Earth underwent a cataclysm. The animals and plants in the world started to change and evolve crazily and inexplicably. The entirety of human civilization was hit hard with countless casualties. In order to protect the world from being destroyed and uphold world peace, humans have awakened the ability to control monsters and use them to fight. He is a normal high school student whose parents were killed during the cataclysm. However, not only he does have a powerful and mysterious beauty protecting him, he even awakened a mysterious system, and when it comes to taming and raising monsters, he shall reign supreme. However, the Earth's cataclysm also caused the bizarre disappearance of his grandfather. In the face of deadly dangers that are coming one after another, there is only one path he can take, and that is to become powerful and become the strongest monster trainer, also to succeed in evolving an epic grade familiar. However, in the future, he will one day realize that the epic grade monster evolution is just the beginning. Our main protagonist's name is Gao Peng. He is 18 years old, a student at Chang'an 3rd Senior High School, and his dream is to become the Imperial Ambassador. Previously, the team made a move which made Dummy and Dazai alerted, and made Gao Peng ask Dummy and Dazai what was wrong. Gao Peng noticed someone behind the tree, then he shouted to the people hiding to show their self. The captain nervously said they had been found out. The captain showed himself with their beasts and greet Gao Peng, which made Yao Huan confused. The captain said they are there to see if Gao Peng need help with anything. Then Yao Huan looked at his captain proudly because he thinks his captain is quick-witted. Gao Peng knows that the man is lying because the armor-piercing cone bee and the skull butterfly the man had are the familiars that are good at ambushing an enemy in the forest. Gao Peng thinks the two men definitely don't have good intentions. Suddenly Dummy notices someone, then Gao Peng and Dummy look at the man hiding in the tree. The captain said it was his brother and they should relax because they have no ill intentions. But in reality, the captain is nervously wondering how Gao Peng and his beast are so perceptive of their plan. Deng Sen showed himself with his beast named Mitral Cockroach. It was level 18 elite and it was in excellent grade. The cockroach's attribute is gold, and its weakness is electric. Then Deng Sen agreed to his captain's word and said he had to use the bathroom, that's why he just came. Gao Peng looked at the mithril cockroach data and thinks it was a rare type of variant, and luckily Dazai can counter it so there's nothing to be afraid of. Then Gao Peng said he don't think he need help, especially if it was that kind of help. The captain responded that since Gao Peng doesn't like them impeding, they should forget about it. Then the captain walk away, which made Yao Huan shocked. Yao Huan walks toward his captain and asks if they are really leaving. The captain responded that with their exposure one after another, they already lost the element of surprise, and if they fail, they just make a new enemy for nothing. The captain also said to be able to raise 3 familiars at the same time at such a young age means that Gao Peng either has the money or the skills to do so. Either way, it means that they shouldn't mess with Gao Peng, and the captain said to make things worse, the black-robed familiar of Gao Peng is giving off an aura that makes Tudu rather uncomfortable, and Tudu's intuition has saved him many times. The captain turned to walk away properly while saying in this dog-eat-dog world, who knows what kind of familiars they meet that could easily take their lives, and he said they will go back once Gao Peng leaves to see if they can find anything there later. Yao Huan said he understand while still looking at Gao Peng. Gao Peng looked at the man while wondering if Dummy didn't spot the person hiding in the dark, would the men have attacked them head-on. Gao Peng also wonders if the 3 men attacked them, would he have just fought with the intention to kill. 2 hours later, Gao Peng was happy because they get 0.95 kilograms of wood space hearts and he thinks it should be enough. Then Gao Peng called Dazai and use his one hand to hold Dazai in its horns and use one hand to get the torch at Silly. Then Gao Peng made the torch fire using Dazai electricity. Then Gao Peng drops the torch into the leaves on the ground. The forest made a big fire and Gao Peng walk away while thinking that before the cataclysm, starting a fire in a forest was a chargeable offense, but they removed that law after the cataclysm occurred. The life force and resistance possessed by the plants have become more resilient than initially imagined, and for a simple flame to create a huge fire is practically impossible. Gao Peng knows that it was convenient for him to get rid of the evidence. Meanwhile, at the top of the forest, Yao Huan pointed at something and called his captain to look at it. Deng Sen said Gao Peng is cunning, and then he asks his captain if Gao Peng was scared that they'd find something when they double back. The captain said Gao Peng is too vigilant and he thinks Gao Peng might have not realized the decisive ruthlessness that's embedded in his nature. Yao Huan asks his captain if they are just going to leave the matter alone. Captain responded that there is no fundamental conflict between Gao Peng and them. If Gao Peng was holding on to some obvious treasure, then things might have been different. Captain said he would have chosen to take the risk and eliminate all the traces, and to say it simply, the possible benefits aren't big enough. Also, they can't afford it, and they can forget about it, but someone else sure won't. Then the captain calls someone and he said to the person on the other line to relay to Dr. Jiang that the mission has been completed, and he already sent him pictures of the target's familiars. Meanwhile, in the other place, the man thanks the captain for his hard work, and he said that the captain's remuneration has been sent. The man looked at Dr. Jiang and he said that he don't think those bandits even made a move, and this scouting mission is a failure. Dr. Jiang said it was fine. Then Jiang asks the man if they haven't already finished preparing the next step of their plan. Then Dr. Jiang smiled in a creepy way and said Jai Hanwu, his grandson, his only relative, he found him. On the other hand, Gao Peng and his beasts come back to their apartment and they saw the apartment dirty with an empty can of food and skin of Stripey on the floor. Gao Peng said Stripey's growth rate sure is quick, and not only has Stripey leveled up, but its body has also grown 2 sizes bigger since they left the house. Then Gao Peng grabs the skin of Stripey on the floor and look at it. Then he said the skins of Stripey broke so easily, and here he thought the shed skins of familiars could have a magical effect like in the novels. Gao Peng walked towards Stripey and tells it to continue eating because it is best if it can eat up and be nice and chubby. Then Gao Peng said they will wait until Stripey become fat, then they'll eat fried spider meat, which made Stripey shake in fear. Then Stripey ungrabbed the can of food it was holding, then lay on the floor sad, while Gao Peng explained that he's telling Stripey to eat less for his own good because his body will accumulate toxins if he eat too much canned food in one sitting. Gao Peng thinks that they collected wood space hearts and the items required for Sill's evolution are all gathered. However, they can't be stewed in a large pot of food. Gao Peng knows that Silly has a weak constitution and can't take any stress, so the materials need special preparation. Then Gao Peng decided to go to Fei Peng Familiar Studio with Silly. He opens the studio using his hand access, and when they finally inside the studio, Gao Peng noticed that Quanquan went home so early today, which means no one will disturb him. Gao Peng grabs his lab coat while thinking that the ingredients are rare, and according to the formula they have to be specially processed by refrigeration, high temperature burning, and corrosion using a strong acid. Gao Peng goes to the lab and proceeds to cook the ingredient at a high temperature, then he blends the mixture. Gao Peng showed the mixture and the tube happy and said that the ingredients is finally done, and judging by its sweet fragrance, Silly will definitely like it. Gao Peng put the mixture in the large glass, which made Silly smell its fragrance, and Silly thinks the mixture is juice. Gao Peng pointed to the pot and ordered Silly to come in, which Silly immediately did. Silly jumps to the pot happy while Gao Peng said he hasn't even finished talking yet and Silly is so impatient. Suddenly, Gao Peng was shocked to saw that Silly changing color. Gao Peng thinks there's something wrong with the color because Silly turning green. Gao Peng realizes that Silly's favorite place is on top of his head, and he suddenly feels that it's the wrong decision to choose the wood spirit jellyfish evolution path. Gao Peng looks at happy Silly and shouts for help because he doesn't like fluorescent green jellyfish. Gao Peng also realizes the materials needed for the evolution to epic grade are way too rare. Then he angrily wonders what the space attribute materials called magical space sand, and it looks like the highest grade Silly can reach is the perfect grade for now. Silly's monster's name changed to wooden spirit jellyfish. It was level 6 normal and it has perfect grade. Silly's new attributes are space, wood, and wind. Its condition is healthy and happy. Also, Silly's weaknesses are electricity and ice. Gao Peng said with Silly's evolution, his soul strength has increased considerably, and is probably still far away from being able to make a contract with Dummy. But as long as he put in the effort, Gao Peng knows that it'll probably only take a couple of days. Suddenly Gao Peng feels Silly's eyes behind him. Then Silly tried to sit on his head, but Gao Peng tried to push Silly away. Still, Silly happily succeeded to sit on the top of sad Gao Peng head. Suddenly Gao Peng phone rang, and when he looked at it, he saw it was the construction company that Tang Tang introduced to him a few days ago. Gao Peng wondered why Manager Lai called him so late when the details of the workflow had already been finalized. Gao Peng answered the call, then Manager Lai asks if he have a minute because they encountered some problems while cleaning the villa and they need Gao Peng to personally come to take a look. Gao Peng asks what's the problem. Manager Lai responded that they found some variant plants inside the villa that impede their development work, and if they do not get rid of the variant plants, it will be impossible for them to continue with their repair work. However, if they remove the plants they would need to remove parts of the building, which is why they hope that Gao Peng can come and take a look. Gao Peng agreed, then Manager Lai said it was great because all of the workers are waiting for him on site, so he need to hurry. Gao Peng noticed something and asked Manager Lai to wait. Then Gao Peng asks if Manager Lai said all the workers are waiting for him on site right now. Then he asks if he really has such honor that many masters are working overtime for him without any extra pay. Meanwhile, Manager Lai, who is currently being hostage, responded that is a matter within their own organization. Then he asked Gao Peng to just hurry up. Gao Peng agreed and said he'll be there later. Then the man who was holding Manager Lai's phone ended the call. Dr. Jiang patted Manager Lai's head and said Manager Lai did a good job and his son will be having roast chicken tonight. On the other hand, Gao Peng was looking at his phone and said Manager Lai's words are very suspicious and he can't contact Tang Tang. Gao Peng decided to bring Dummy and Da Zai as a precaution. Then Gao Peng ran while calling silly. Half an hour later, the man asked Dr. Jiang why Gao Peng hasn't arrived yet, and he also asked if he thinks Gao Peng noticed that something was wrong. Dr. Jiang responded that the man should be patient and that it was fine if Gao Peng comes a bit late because they still need to meet Jai Hanwu's people. Dr. Jiang also tells the man that he really didn't want to use such violent methods because, after all, they are civilized people. Dr. Jiang said no one in their group would have thought that Jai Hanwu still had a living grandson, and if someone hadn't secretly relayed that to him, all of them would have just thought he had no relatives left. The man said if news about Jai Hanwu's grandson being alive spreads, it's a given that a lot of people will move back into the dark to try and get rid of that threat. Dr. Jiang looks at his wine and shakes it while saying, after all, Jai Hanwu doesn't have any family. Jai Hanwu certainly grows old, but his grandson, on the other hand, is still very young, and Dr. Jiang said as the saying goes, wealth moveth the heart of a man. Then he said the Southern Sky Group is now a huge organization with different forces populating the higher-ups and everyone having their own motives and ideas. The man was shocked and asked Dr. Jiang if he mean that they have to kill Gao Peng. Then the man also asks why don't they just kill Gao Peng, and why waste time on such superfluous actions. Dr. Jiang threw his wine and said Jai Hanwu spent so much effort to protect and hide his grandson, so he must pay a lot of attention to ensure his safety. There are surely people protecting Gao Peng secretly, and if they move in right away, an accident is very likely. It'd be extremely problematic if they alerted Jai Hanwu. Also, Dr. Jiang asked the man who said that he wanted to kill Gao Peng. He only want to use him as leverage over Jai Hanwu for negotiation. Dr. Jiang throws his glass wine and looks at the man. Then he asks him if he actually thinks they have the prerequisites to fight for control over the Southern Sky Group. The glass wine broke into the ground and Dr. Jiang said if they killed Jai Hanwu's grandson, they had to face the wrath of Jin Hanwu, and ultimately, the only benefactors would be those who have the prerequisites and capabilities to compete for the spot. Dr. Jiang also said the research unit isn't among the top in the Southern Sky Group, and there are at least 30 people who are on the same level as him. Moreover, apart from research units, there are still a few major security units, and even if the only heir of the Southern Sky Group were to pass away, the position is too far away from him. Dr. Jiang smiled and said why should he dirty his hands when he can benefit more by muddying the water because, after all, it wouldn't be wrong to consider Gao Peng as the prince who would inherit the throne one day. Even though they're on opposite sides right now, their world's definition of a friend and enemy is never that simple. They just need to wait till he gets his benefits and expands his laboratory tonight. Then he knows Gao Peng can't refuse his capitulation in the future. Dr. Jiang checked the time and said it was about time and Jai Hanwu's people should be there. Then he asks the man to help him keep an eye on Manager Lai, which made Manager Lai shake in fear and said Dr. Jiang shouldn't hurt him. Dr. Jiang showed his butterfly beast while asking Manager Lai not to be nervous because he's a respectable researcher, and not the same as those hooligans. Then Dr. Jiang's butterfly beast flies toward Manager Lai, and then the butterfly sprinkles dust on Manager Lai, which made Manager Lai collapse to the ground. Dr. Jiang looked at Manager Lai sleeping and said Manager Lai should rest for a while because he can't have him meddling in the following matters. Dr. Jiang also said it's a pity that there'll be one less person to witness his success tonight. Suddenly something fly into the sky fast. Then the man pointed at it and called Dr. Jiang to look at it. Then they saw a dragon beast flying in the sky. Meanwhile, in Chang'an's military region, the military bird beast is currently relaxing in its nest. Suddenly the bird feels something and screams loudly, which made the military wonder what's happening. Then he asks his comrade if the ape from the Dark Ember Forest is out. His comrade disagrees and he thinks it looks like the Golden God discovered something and they should hurry up and investigate. The chief arrives and tells the military that there's no need to investigate because that person from the Southern Sky Group is there in Chang'an. The chief said there was no need to worry and he just need to sound the alert as usual, which the military immediately followed. The chief looked at their bird beast and said a storm is coming. On the other hand, Jai Hanwu and his beast arrive in front of Dr. Jiang, which made Jiang said he has Gao Peng in stuttered words. Jai Hanwu warned Dr. Jiang to think clearly before speaking. Dr. Jiang looked at his people that were dead on the ground, and he explained that what he said just now was nonsense, and he spewed due to nervousness. Then Jiang begs Jai Hanwu to give him a chance to speak. Jai Hanwu asked him who told him about Gao Peng. Dr. Jiang responded that Jai Hanwu shouldn't be hasty because he didn't let anyone know about Gao Peng. However, he has set up a program, and as long as he doesn't decode the program on time, The program will send news about Gao Peng to the mobile devices of every employee in the Southern Sky Group. Jai Hanwoo tells Jiang to forget it because everyone has their own will, so he won't force him to tell. Then Jai Hanwoo starts to walk away, but Dr. Jiang shouts that he'll tell him, and he said it was Secretary Liu. Then he explained that he only wanted more funds and he never thought about hurting Gao Peng. As long as there are enough funds, he will certainly bring immense benefits to the Southern Sky Group. Jai Hanwoo touches Beast and said seeing that Jiang actually worked hard, he'll let him have a good time, which made Jiang beg for forgiveness, but it was too late. Jai Hanwoo looked at the dead Jiang and said Jiang is a fool because he would never be threatened in any way. Then Jai Hanwoo clicks his device bracelet to contact his people. Jai Hanwoo orders his people to investigate Jiang because he probably set up a program. And if they can find the program, they should destroy it, and if they can't, they should let him know because Gao Peng is the heir to the Southern Sky Group. And that is an unchangeable truth. In the worst case scenario, Jai Hanwoo will simply need to announce that to the public earlier. The man in the other line said he understood and then hang up. Suddenly Tang Tang arrives while Jai Hanwoo was looking at the place. Jin Hanwoo looks at Tang Tang and thanks her for her hard work. Jai Hanwoo tells her that when he just returned from overseas, he couldn't fully control the group because the group was in a state of chaos, and the death of Gao Peng parents overshadowed news about Gao Peng. Jai Hanwoo said he could only send his people to find any remaining clues so that Gao Peng could grow up in peace. Although the forces within the group has gradually stabilized, there was no need to rush bringing Gao Peng over, and the sort of free-roaming grooming method can better train a person's willpower. Also, Gao Peng's talent has far exceeded his expectations. Jai Hanwoo patted his beast and said he have some business to attend to, so he'll leave the cleanup to her, which made her shocked. Tang Tang asks his teacher Jai Hanwoo if he isn't going to visit Gao Peng tonight. Jai Hanwoo looked at her and said they should wait for a more suitable opportunity. Also, for Gao Peng, a rock-solid heart and soul are so much more precious than any obtainable object. Then Jin Hanwoo left, leaving a message that Gao Peng should show him how much he can grow. Meanwhile, Gao Peng and his beasts arrived at the place, but they didn't see anyone. Gao Peng wondered where his manager Lai and the workers. Also, he couldn't get in touch with manager Lai since just now, and he worried that something wrong happened. Gao Peng noticed the mark in the ground and said no matter how he looks at the mark, it doesn't look like a trace left behind from renovation, and he thinks it looks like a claw mark. Suddenly someone said seems like she underestimated Gao Peng growth, which made Gao Peng shocked and turned around and he saw it was Tang Tang. Gao Peng sighed and said it was just her, and no wonder Silly didn't alert him, which made her feel a bit of disgust and dismissal because of Gao Peng's expression. Tang Tang lectured Gao Peng that in their current situation, he shouldn't let his guard down so easily because he can't confirm if she was an enemy or not. Gao Peng responded that if he have to be suspicious of her too, then there wouldn't be anyone he can trust in their world because ever since he became an orphan. But before Gao Peng can finish his word, Tang Tang interrupted him and said Gao Peng is wrong. She explained that Gao Peng is not an orphan and his grandfather is still alive, which made Gao Peng shocked and asked her if his grandfather is really still alive. She explained that when the cataclysm occurred, his grandfather was stuck on a foreign island. The people who were stuck on the island with his grandfather included several of his grandfather's most trusted aides. The island was already a tropical environment. It was surrounded by ocean, so no one could imagine the difficulties at such a start, and if one were to say that an inland city was a normal difficulty, then the island would be the start of a hell difficulty stage. Also, islands don't have armies. However, the heavens never forsook his grandfather, and his grandfather was lucky later and seized the opportunity. His grandfather relied on his amazing will to survive on the island while continuously training familiars, which made Gao Peng think his grandfather is amazing. Tang Tang also said his grandfather cares about him dearly, so his grandfather entrusted her to look after and protect him. As to why his grandfather never came to see him, his grandfather has his reasons. Gao Peng responded that he knows that it's the whole before heavens entrust a man with great responsibility. He shall be tested kind of thing. Gao Peng said he knows his grandpa's personality. His grandfather must have felt it wasn't safe and thought that it would easier to protect him by keeping him hidden, and his grandpa wants to test him, hoping that he would grow on his own as quickly as possible. Gao Peng looked away and assured Tang Tang she won't have to worry because he understands his grandfather because he is his family, which made Tang Tang feel happy while looking at Gao Peng. Suddenly Gao Peng happily jumps forward to her and asks what his grandfather familiar and what grade is it, and if it is incredibly strong. Tang Tang just responded that he will know the answer in the future, which made Gao Peng sad. On the other hand, his grandfather was looking at them in the sky with his beast. Jai Hanwoo happily said Gao Peng understand him, then he said he'll be waiting for when the time comes. The next day, Gao Peng looks at the people gathered in one place with an ambulance and he wonders what happened. Gao Peng come to take a look and saw one student lying on the medical stretcher. Then he asked his classmate if the student accidentally lose his footing. His classmate responded that it wasn't an accident. The student was beaten up by a monster trainer cadet, and she heard that the two students have always had problems with one another and one of them became a monster trainer cadet. This morning the two students had a verbal spat in front of the school gate, and the monster trainer cadet used his familiar to attack the other student. Because of that the student was almost killed. Gao Peng classmate also said the student who used his familiar to commit the crime used to be bullied in his class because of his weak personality. As for the student who was sent to the hospital, he was one of the students that bullied the attacker student the most. The other students were talking and fighting about their reason for the situation of the bullied attacker and injured bully, while Gao Peng was walking away wondering what the school's and military's stance on the situation and if they removed the training grounds from their school. Meanwhile, at the principal office, the principal was angrily shouting at the military chief that the school prohibits students from carrying sharp tools like knives because the students' age and mentality make the students impulsive, and those familiars are way more dangerous than knives, and continuing training inside the school is unreasonable in terms of safety. Also, it is unfair to the students who do not have familiars. The military calmly tells the principal to calm down because they didn't wish for it to happen too. The principal calmed down and apologized because he lost his cool, and he explained that his words don't concern the others. He was just worried about the safety of the students. The military chief said he understand. Then he stand up while explaining that he seriously consider the principal's suggestion, and that he will also relay it to the higher-ups, but he can't guarantee the principal what the result will be. The military walked to the door and said that right now nowhere is really safe anymore and all he can do is to try to stop things like their current situation from happening with the power of the law. Then the military chief left, leaving the principal sigh and worry. At the Chang'an military region, the military chief tells his chief instructor everything that happened at the school, and the instructor chief agreed and said the school should be a place for studying. But that was in the past. The instructor chief also said that the military chief should know that just in the last month, Chang'an City reported over 300 cases of familiars injuring humans. Moreover, because the familiars were abnormally lethal, most of those kinds of incidents were malicious in nature, and the incident isn't simply a criminal incident in Chang'an City. They have to look at the whole country and the entire world. The chief instructors explained that in Huaxia, they have the lowest crime rate, and countries in the West have it worse. Also, West police force is completely overwhelmed, and they need to depend on powerful civilians to help them keep their peace and maintain stability. The chief military responded in frustration that he understand. Then the chief instructor held his shoulder and said he understand what he feels, but he need to relax because the world allied government won't sit around and wait for the situation to worsen. The instructor said the special times call for a special measure, and their task is still very heavy. Meanwhile, in the monster park, the students are properly listening to their instructor Renbai. Renbai lectured the students and said they all haven't even killed many monsters yet, and they already started to bully other students. Then Renbai announced that starting tomorrow all their familiars will be prohibited from entering school, and the military will construct a large gate on the side of the training group specifically for their familiars, while the other students were laughing at Gao Peng because of the green jellyfish in his head. Gao Peng tried to remove Silly from his head, but Silly don't want to go. Then Gao Peng said he heard that jellyfish wolfberry soup is taste good, which made Silly shocked him in fear. Then Silly gets a bottle of juice in his inventory, then gives it to Gao Peng while saying Gao Peng should drink juice and not jellyfish soup. Renbai called for the students' attention and said it'll be time for the entrance examination for college in 2 months, and time waits for no man. The results of their last 2 months of training will significantly affect and even determine their final results. Renbai said to the students that they shouldn't think that a good result is useless because all the big groups, the military, and the government will throw a baton at all the monster trainer cadets with excellent grades, and those individuals who possess special talents will receive focused training. No matter the treatment or prospect, it'll be far beyond those of normal students. Then Renbai pointed to the screen behind him and asked the students to take a look. Renbai explained that the first set of the entrance examination for college questions for monster trainer cadets is out because they were sent to various base cities in multiple countries across the world. According to the document disseminated, the exam will be divided into 3 rounds. The first round will be a unified examination across the country. They will lead their familiars to challenge monsters. Firstly, the students can select the tier and grade of the monsters, but the monster type will be randomized. At the same time, They cannot choose monsters with specific attribute advantages in the battles. If the monster has an attribute that is advantageous over their familiar's monster attribute, they will have one chance to change the challenging monster. And of course, if their familiar is successful in defeating a monster with an advantageous attribute, then they will get a 10% bonus. The base points given for normal tier monsters are 10 points, elite tier monsters give 50 points, and commander tier monsters give 500 points. Based on the points, excellent grade monsters with the same level will provide bonus points of 50%, and perfect grade monsters with the same level will provide bonus points of 100%. Secondly, the number of monsters they challenge cannot exceed the number of monsters they possess, and if they only have 3 familiars, then at most, they will be able to battle 3 monsters. That rule is to prevent examinees with high-level familiars from selecting a large number of low-level monsters to grind their points. The first round of their exam is essentially the finish line for most of the students. Only a few excellent students will meet the requirements to take the second round of the exam. The second round of the exam will be a real combat survival mission in the wilderness. Moreover, the proceeding will be broadcast live nationally, and the specific rules will be announced after the first round of the exam. However, as long as they can meet the requirement for the second round of examination, they can essentially get admitted to a prestigious university. Renbai also said for their third round of the exam, they need to wait until they've earned the right to participate in the second round of the exam before they let them know. Renbai said he hoped all the examinees won't waste their time, and he believed they had experienced the 3 years of calamity equally. It wasn't easy to achieve their exams, and he hoped that all the students treasure it, and the military instructors will provide the students with extra training in the remaining time. Gao Peng said with his skill set, he can participate in the year's exam even though he is just a sophomore, and he realizes that he needs to promote Stripey to a perfect grade as fast as possible. Renbai walked to the side of the monster in the cage and he said after their begging over and over, they've finally given special approval for the mutant Deadleaf Locust. Then he asks who wants to train first. The monster name is Deadleaf Locust, a gigantificated variant. The Locust grade is excellent and it was level 10 normal. Gao Peng look at the Locust data and he thinks that Stripey has grown to level 10 during the period, and in terms of level and grade, there's not much between Stripey and Deadleaf Locusts. Also, the Locust is the perfect opponent for training. Moreover, Gao Peng knows that locusts are originally the prey of spiders, so Stripey has the upper hand. But Gao Peng look at Stripey who currently hiding behind Da's eye and he wonders why Stripey is so timid. Then he remembered that Stripey was ruthless when it attacked him last time and maybe it was a stress response after being frightened. Then Gao Peng raises his hand and tells Renbai that he'll go train first again, while Stripey is hiding behind him, which made Renbai ask if he had another one to train. Renbai tells Gao Peng that under normal circumstances, monster trainers put everything into training their first familiar, and they only begin training a second one after the first reaches commander tier. That's only because commander tier familiars have the ability to preserve one's life genuinely. Renbai also tells Gao Peng that he's one of their outstanding students. Training multiple familiars at the same time will waste a lot of his time and effort, especially during a crucial period like before the entrance exam, and his best option is to advance one of his familiars to the commander tier so that he can obtain points from commander tier monsters. Gao Peng thanked Renbai for his advice, but Gao Peng said he already planned the training thoroughly, so it won't be a problem for him. Gao Peng also thinks although Renbai is saying that for his own good, he can't tell Renbai that he can easily promote a familiar's grade with the help of the system. Then Stripey shakily enters the cage where Locusts was, while Gao Peng cheers Stripey outside the cage. Stripey looked up and saw the Locust in the ceiling of the cage. Then Stripey shakingly tells to Locust not to hit him. Gao Peng classmates ask him why isn't anything happening, if the familiars are going to fight or not, and should his teddy go first instead. This made Gao Peng think his classmates is a good match because one is suspicious while the other one is cowardly. Gao Peng said he finally understands what Renbai meant about his familiars having differences in personalities. In the same first battle, Dazai and Stripey are completely different. Dazai is aggressive and it took the initiative to attack its prey. On the other hand, Stripey chooses to defend itself and run away. If the floor weren't cement, Stripey might have dug a hole in the ground to hide. Gao Peng look at Stripey and thinks Stripey need to experience something like that. If he wants to grow, Stripey needs to experience combat. Suddenly the Locust attacked Stripey, then the Locust grabbed Stripey claw and threw Stripey into the air, which made Stripey shocked. Gao Peng panics because he knows that the Deadleaf Locust wants to fight in the air, and the situation gives the Locusts an upper hand and only the Locust mutant creature possesses the strength to lift Stripey into the air. Stripey attacked the Locust using its web while in the air, which made the Locust stick on the ground. Stripey landed on the ground and shielded itself shakingly. The locust broke the web and attacked Stripey repeatedly. Ting tells Gao Peng that his little spider is pretty strong because it diffuses the attack of a special mutant. Gao Peng knows that Ting words are wrong because it is supposed to be the best opportunity for Stripey to attack, but since it was busy defending after touching the ground, Stripey missed the chance. Although the locust is a mutant, its attacks didn't harm Stripey, which means Stripey is far stronger than the locust. Gao Peng ordered Stripey to attack the locust, but Stripey disagreed and said he's scared. Gao Peng assured Stripey that he was stronger than it. Then he orders Stripey to climb up the cage and attack the locusts, but Stripey disagreed again and said climbing the cage is too hard. Gao Peng angrily shouted at Stripey and reminds Stripey that he is a spider, but he has the gall to actually tell him that crawling up an iron cage is too difficult. Then Gao Peng said Stripey is undoubtedly the lamest familiar that he has trained. Gao Peng calms down and thinks that it's because he was too greedy, and training a familiar has never been an easy task. Then he looks at Stripey and realizes that Stripey's just a defense-type familiar that does not rely on attacks. Since Stripey is unwilling to attack, it's okay to just train Stripey defense. Then Gao Peng calls Stripey to get out of the cage. Gao Peng tells Stripey to come out if he doesn't want to attack, which made Stripey think his new master is not happy and he will be left behind again. Stripey looked at Gao Peng and said his new master is not happy and he will be left behind again, but he doesn't want to be thrown away again. Suddenly, Stripey crawled to the cage and looked down at the locusts. Stripey angrily looks at it while saying he doesn't want to be thrown away. Then Stripey jumps to attack the locusts. Then Stripey attacked the locust using its claws, which made everyone praise Gao Peng and cheer for Stripey, but Gao Peng thinks Stripey's condition isn't right. Gao Peng saw Stripey's status is aggressive and out of control. Then he saw a warning because Stripey's desire to fight had increased drastically, and staying in the state for a long time will cause irreversible damage to Stripey. Stripey attacks the locust using its web, then he stabs the locust using its claws repeatedly and angrily. Gao Peng reaches Stripey and he grabs Stripey to stop attacking. Then Gao Peng tells Stripey that he did great, and Gao Peng apologizes for what he just said, and he said Stripey was amazing. Stripey looks at Gao Peng while it's still thinking that Gao Peng is angry and he needs to fight because he doesn't want to be thrown away, and Stripey's status is still aggressive and out of control. Gao Peng smiled at Stripey and said he'll never leave him behind because he is his monster trainer. They are partners. Then he asks Gao Peng why in the world would a person leave his partner behind. Then Gao Peng ordered Stripey to come out because it was enough. Stripey looks at Gao Peng softly and asks if his word was true. Also, Stripey's status is back to normal. Gao Peng patted Stripey and assured Stripey that he won't ever throw him away, while Renbai looked at them. Renbai remembers Gao Peng asking him to open the cage and let him in because his familiar's condition isn't right, and he needs to go save it. Renbai knows that intervening in a fight between familiars is a very dangerous thing to do, but Gao Peng didn't even hesitate, and perhaps the reason Gao Peng managed to achieve such excellent grades is because Gao Peng is fearless. Then Renbai sighed and said it'd be great if someone with that kind of talent become one of them. 1 week later, Gao Peng was looking at Stripey, who's finally lost weight after 1 week of training. Stripey no longer feared combat, but in his spare time, he still consulted Renbai and formulated a fighting style where the main goal is to deplete the enemy's stamina in order to avoid engaging in head-on battles. Gao Peng looked at Stripey, who currently upgraded to level 13 playing with Silly, while thinking that he has thought a lot ever since Stripey lost control last time. The aid the system provides him with is immense, but if he relies on the system too much and expects that everything will go smoothly, he will eventually end up at a big disadvantage, no matter the fighting tactic or his control over the information. Gao Peng knows that he is still too inexperienced and he needs to take it slow and not expect immediate success. Then he looks at the peeled skin of Stripey and he thinks each time he throws the skin of Stripey he feels like it was a waste. Also, he heard that spider exoskeletons or spider peeled skin can be used as medicine. Then he decided to try dipping it with egg, flour, and sugar and frying it. Gao Peng thinks he's one of the Celestial Empire's people after all and there's nothing he can't eat, and if it has poison, he has Dazai, which made Dazai confused. Gao Peng started cooking, and when he tasted it he said it was so delicious, and adding cumin powder would make it perfect. Gao Peng called Stripey and Dazai to have a taste of it. Then Dazai ate it and said it was delicious, but Stripey said he feels that Gao Peng made has a familiar taste. Gao Peng put his apron on the handle while thinking that since Stripey level has increased, his soul strength should have increased too. Then he decided to try signing a contract with Dummy again. Gao Peng tried to make a contract with Dummy and asked Dummy if he was willing to become his familiar. Dummy smiled and said he do, which made Gao Peng and Dummy contract successful. Gao Peng happily said it was a success and his soul has indeed increased. Then he smiled at Dummy and tells Dummy to guide him for the rest of his life. which made Dummy smile and agree. The second wilderness training day arrives. The students were on the bus, and Gao Peng was peacefully sitting at the back of the bus while relieved because it was finally time for their second training. And he remembered the last time they encountered a scary anaconda by just casually walking around the jungle, so they had to remain vigilant for the rest of the days. But this time, he brought Dummy and Dazai so they can finally explore the place properly. Suddenly, he hears his classmate talking angrily about someone who locked them in the safe house before. But his classmate said they don't know who it was because they didn't see the face who locked them, and they said if they saw that someone, they have 100 methods to make sure that some won't be able to stay at their school. This made Gao Peng realize that those people were he locked in the safe house before, and he thinks fate is a funny thing. The students' bus and their beast bus arrived at the valley. Dummy and Dazai stand up to get down, which made the other beasts shocked in fear. Then Dummy and Dazai, who are currently wrapped around Dummy, walk toward Gao Peng. While Gao Peng realizes though Dummy's level isn't high, the aura of an epic grade is enough to suppress the other familiars. Gao Peng orders Dummy to suppress his aura a bit, then he orders his beasts to follow him. The other student who's looking at Gao Peng angrily asks why Gao Peng is so cocky about his familiars. Inside the valley, Gao Peng and Dazai were on Dummy's shoulder while Dummy is walking. Gao Peng said he didn't team up with Ting this time because it's easier to get things done if he's alone, and he believes that the more people, the harder things will become. Dummy said he will protect Gao Peng. Then Gao Peng asked Dummy where did he learn those words. Dummy said he learned it at an Armor Baby show, which made Gao Peng realize Dummy learned it from a children's show. Suddenly something jumped in front of them, which made Gao Peng shocked. Then he said the direction that something disappeared is to the pond where they encountered the green-skinned frogs last time. Gao Peng orders Dummy to change direction because he doesn't want to be spit saliva by those green-skinned frogs again. Suddenly the anaconda showed itself, which made Gao Peng, Dummy and Dazai shocked in fear. Gao Peng realizes encountering the anaconda 2 times in a row means their current area is the giant jungle anaconda's territory. The anaconda look at the frog in the pond, which made the frogs shake in fear. Then the frogs attack the anaconda, which made the anaconda angry and attack the frogs too. Gao Peng thinks the anaconda completely ignored the green-skinned frog's attacks, though the giant jungle anaconda is only level 20. Its overall strength is no less than commander tier monsters that exceeded that level. Also, the anaconda turned the whole pond upside down all by itself. Gao Peng noticed the tadpole in the ground, and he saw the frogs and tadpoles panicking in the pond. Then he saw how the anaconda eats the small beasts. Gao Peng thinks the green-skinned frogs managed to survive in the ponds but never destroyed the balance of the ecosystem because of the periodical visit of the giant jungle anaconda. The anaconda finally left the pond, and Gao Peng thinks the anaconda left because it's full, and he said life is not easy for everyone. Gao Peng also realizes that there's only a slight difference between the level of the anaconda and Dazai. Also, Dummy has a higher grade than the anaconda, but it's still best to avoid direct conflict with the giant jungle anaconda. Gao Peng ordered Dummy something. On the other hand, in the bush, the frog and tadpole look at their pond sad because others of their kind were killed and eaten by the anaconda. Suddenly, someone grabs the frog hiding in the bush, and the frog who has been snatched ended up being cooked. Gao Peng happily said the frog muscle is sweet and has a lemongrass aroma, and he said no wonder the anaconda made periodical visits because the green-skinned frogs really tempted it with their delicious meat. Suddenly Dazai hears something and look in another direction alerted, which made Gao Peng shocked and asked Dazai what was wrong. Gao Peng looked up and saw a black light horse. The black light horse is level 14 and has excellent grades. The horse attribute is dark and its weakness is ice. Gao Peng turned to look at the horse who currently running away, and said it was a high lethality, a pitch black body, and it looks like a shadow. Then Gao Peng said he want to collect it because the horse type of mountable familiar is way too cool. Gao Peng looked away and convinced himself that he has already had familiars, but when he looked at the frog leg it was gone. Gao Peng looked at Dummy who currently eating pine needle cedar, then he looks at Dazai who's lying on the ground full. Gao Peng knows who steal his frog legs. Then he asks Dummy why he steal his green-skinned leg frog leg, and Dazai looked at Dummy too and said it was really Dummy. But Dummy asks Gao Peng how could he suspect a skeleton to steal and eat meat. Then Dummy grabbed Dazai's tail and then he shakes Dazai until Dazai spat out the frog leg. Gao Peng looks at the dizzy Dazai and knows that only Dummy can put Dazai in its place. Suddenly Dummy hears something. Then Dummy immediately grabs Gao Peng, which made Gao Peng shocked, and he asked Dummy what's wrong. When Gao Peng looked at his side he saw the anaconda sneaking to attack again. Dummy jumped to the other way while still holding Dazai and Gao Peng. Gao Peng realizes that if Dummy hadn't reacted in time, Dazai and him might have perished at the mouth of the anaconda. Gao Peng also realized that it was the second time the anaconda visited him, even though he haven't looked for any trouble with the anaconda. Then he calls Dummy and asks Dummy if he can kill the anaconda. Dummy pounds his chest and says kill. Then Dummy jumped to the tree and jumps to another tree to reach the top of it. Then Dummy saw the anaconda in the distance, but Dummy still jumped off the tree with a force which alerted the anaconda, and when the anaconda looked up, it saw Dummy in the sky. Then Dummy landed a punch in Anaconda's face, which made the anaconda one tooth falls out at its mouth. The anaconda screamed with anger, but Dummy immediately punched the anaconda in its chin, and he punched it again in its body, which made the anaconda lightly injured. Dummy punched the anaconda over and over again, which made it moderately injured. Gao Peng said Dummy's combat ability has once again amazed him. Dummy punched the anaconda with force, which made the anaconda move away from its position. The anaconda tried to stand up, but Dummy grabbed its face. The anaconda's eye released a red aura, and Gao Peng saw that the anaconda's status had changed to Berserk. Gao Peng shouted to tell Dummy to be careful of the anaconda's trump card, which made Dummy look at Gao Peng for a second. And when he looks back at the anaconda, it's spinning. Then the anaconda spun uncontrollably, which made a tornado and made Dummy fly on the ground. Dummy sit back and saw the anaconda changed its body. Gao Peng asks the injured Dummy if it can still stand up. Dummy signaled Gao Peng to step back, which made Gao Peng shocked. Then Dummy touches his heart and grabs it forcefully. Then Dummy hands was suddenly into the anaconda's heart. Gao Peng feels the overwhelming pressure and said Dummy used his blood thread heart, a supernatural gift that was awakened after Dummy's advance to epic grade. It controls the enemy's heart from a distance. Suddenly the anaconda rushed to attack Dummy because it was agitated. But Dummy just smiled. Then Dummy squeezed his heart, which made the snake had a heart attack and collapsed to the ground. The dying snake looks at Dummy, then Dummy ready his fist, then Dummy punched the snake to kill it. Meanwhile, the military witnessed how Dummy killed the giant jungle anaconda in the CCTV. Then the military chief said Gao Peng familiar must have the combat ability of a commander tier monster because it killed the gigantified variant of the jungle anaconda. Then the chief ordered his man to send the information about Gao Peng to him. The man opened Gao Peng's data, and in this data Gao Peng is 18 years old and his family background said encrypted information. Insufficient clearance level. The man tells his chief that Gao Peng information is a bit special. The chief wonder if the training base branch's Class C clearance level isn't enough because based on the definition before the cataclysm, a first-class mayor has access to Class C clearance and senior provincial officials have access to Class B clearance. However, since Gao Peng information is encrypted, it will be difficult to simply attempt to recruit Gao Peng. Then the chief turned to leave and order his man to take good care of Gao Peng, and he should try not to let any accidents happen, which the man understood. On the other hand, Gao Peng ordered Da Zai to cut the anaconda open. Da Zai cut the anaconda easily, which made Gao Peng shocked because the anaconda's skin doesn't sound like they're cutting through thick skin. Rather, it sounds like silk paper tearing. When the anaconda's skin tore open, Gao Peng saw a thick vine inside of it, and he realizes that the reason why the fat anaconda was capable of moving on top of trees as if it was floating, and that also the reason why the anaconda didn't create giant holes even when it fell from higher grounds. Da Zai gives the anaconda crystal core to Gao Peng, which made Gao Peng praise Da Zai. Then Gao Peng look at the tired Dummy, and he thinks earlier, Dummy's incredible strength was due to the activation of the blood thread heart. Even though the heart's destroyed, it will certainly regenerate with the passive effect gone. And Gao Peng noticed that Dummy looks much weaker now. Gao Peng said the blood thread heart not only increased the host's strength, but it also has a lot of benefits. As to what extent its talent can be utilized, depends on how Dummy trains itself after the heart regenerates. Suddenly they heard screams nearby. Then Da Zai said it was the big one from last time, which Gao Peng ran immediately because he realizes that Da Zai was talking about Lotus Seed and Ting. On the other side of the forest, Ting told her classmate Wen and Wai to be careful of their surroundings while Wai helping Wen, who broke her ankle. Ting hears something coming, then the monster showed itself to them. Then the monster attacked them. Ting ordered Lotus Seed to block the monster, which Lotus Seed immediately did. Then Ting carries Wen while telling Wai to run. When they running away from the monster, another monster showed in front of them. Ting realizes that Lotus Seed is currently busy with the other monsters and Wen and Wai familiars can't fight against the enemy, which means they're doomed. Suddenly Dummy punched the monster. Then Dummy grabbed the monster's mouth and threw the monster away to Da Zai. Da Zai used his electricity and toasted the monster dead. Gao Peng orders Dummy and Da Zai to help Lotus Seed get rid of the other monster, which Dummy immediately attacked the other monster. Gao Peng asks Ting if she was okay. Ting said she's fine, and she said if Gao Peng hadn't come in time, she would be the one lying on the ground right now. Then Ting thanked Gao Peng for helping them. Gao Peng said there was no need to thank him because they were friends and they should help each other. Suddenly, the military announces to all examinees participating in the training that the Wild Valley simulation training is now over, which made Ting wonder if there's something happen. Gao Peng said it was because it was weird for the type of earthworm to appear, and maybe it was because the monsters nearby are acting up again. But Gao Peng wondered if isn't the situation was already normal for them. Then he tells Ting that they need to go back and group up, which made Ting agree, and Wen and Wai think Gao Peng is cool. After they come out to the valley, Gao Peng and his beasts are walking to the alley, while Gao Peng thinks that according to their instructor, a new type of strong monster has appeared in the Dali Desert. That's why the Sahachuaman man-eating earthworms were forced over the valley. However, he just communicated with Feng, and Feng said that the government has already come up with a solution. Gao Peng sighs and thinks that there really is no peace around them and that someone else is carrying the weight for them. Suddenly someone called Gao Peng name. The man said he had finally found Gao Peng, and he called Gao Peng a bastard because Gao Peng locked them up in the safe house last time, so he asked Gao Peng to have a talk with him in a sarcastic way. Gao Peng tells the man that he's already 18 years old and that he shouldn't get angry so easily because going around and looking for a fight is bad. Gao Peng also said they brought 4 monsters that haven't even reached the elite tier to block his path. Gao Peng thinks Dazai can settle the situation, which make Dazai sad. Gao Peng patted Dazai's head and tells Dazai not to be angry because he's not looking down on him at all. The man said Gao Peng should relax because they know how to control themselves, and the man said they will only break a few bones of Gao Peng. Then he orders his beast named Black Rajinkong to attack Gao Peng. Gao Peng notices that the man bought equipment for his familiar, and Gao Peng knows that for most familiars, their body parts are already their most lethal weapons as they're equal to steel, and Gao Peng worried about the man's IQ. The monkey attacked Gao Peng, but Gao Peng just sighed and ordered Dummy to teach the little monkey a lesson. Dummy grabs the monkey's neck and lifts it up. Then Dummy flicks the monkey's forehead, which made the monkey owner and his friend shocked. Dummy let go of the monkey and patted it. Then the monkey run behind his owner, which made his owner shocked, and asks his beast why a 7-foot gorilla hiding behind him like it was a bullied daughter-in-law. The man looks at Gao Peng and thinks he didn't expect Gao Peng's familiar to be strong, and he thought the only reason why Gao Peng won Renbai's favor was because Gao Peng knew how to flatter people. The man decides to back off in the meantime and find another chance to get back at Gao Peng. Then the man apologizes to Gao Peng and said it was all just a misunderstanding. But Gao Peng, Dazai, and Dummy walked away before he can apologize. The man realizes that Gao Peng didn't even take him seriously. Then one of the man's accomplices tells him to forget about Gao Peng, and they should have fun at the bar to relax, but the man responded that they should go ahead because he has something important to attend later. The man grabs a towel out of his pocket, then he wiped the tears off his monkey beast, and he tells his beast that jealousy and wrath are useless and that emotion will only waste his time and widen the gap between him and his enemy. Then he tells his beast that they should go home and start their training to become stronger together. Then the man looked at his beast and said when they become stronger they will be able to go up against Gao Peng. Meanwhile, at Gao Peng's studio, Gao Peng was looking at his computer and said the neutralize, the reagents, and all the data seems fine, and it should be a success this time. Then Gao Peng called Stripey, but Stripey is sleeping. Then Gao Peng shouted at Stripey to wake up, which Stripey heard. Gao Peng patted Stripey's head and said they should proceed to its evolution and make him stronger. Then Gao Peng pointed to the container and ordered Stripey to jump. Stripey used its web then crawl into the ceiling, and then Stripey jumped into the container. Gao Peng looked at Stripey inside the container and said it was done, and he just needs to wait. The system only provided the instructions, and he have to collect the materials and perform the operation by himself. Luckily, he just needs to boil all ingredients in a big pot, and once the grade increases, Stripey needs to help in the refining process of the materials. The fire control, electric control, ice control, and the temperature and duration need to be downright accurate. Gao Peng think it's going to be a tough challenge. On the other hand, 2 men were in front of the studio. The man asks his partner if he is sure that the studio is empty. His partner assured that he has been observing the studio for a few days, and by the current time, every employee of the studio went home. The man checked the door glass of the studio and said the glass is military-grade bulletproof, and he asked his partner why they need to steal in a studio if they can steal from a bank. His partner responded that everyone now uses credits for transfers, there is no use for money, and he knows studios have some experimental material. That material can easily fetch hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Then the man gets some slime on his beast and said they should hurry up to open the door. The man looked at his partner and said they don't need to worry about leaving their fingerprints. Then the man said it's his turn. The other man responded that his beast can regenerate infinitely, but his can't while holding something in his hand. The man was holding a mosquito beast inside the case. Then the man walked toward the door to install the crystal with a beast inside, while his partner told him that he can buy any powerful monsters he wants as long as have the money. The man finally installed the crystal and he wanted his partner to be careful of the flying glass after the explosion. Then the man clicks the button which releases a pink smoke that made the mosquito free to the crystal. The mosquito attacked the glass which made a small hole in it and alerted Gao Peng. Gao Peng checks the surveillance camera because he thinks the noise came from the studio's main door. Gao Peng saw the security camera set up at the staircase seemed to be fine. but he can't see anything, which made him think something probably covered the lens, and he thinks people with ill intentions are on the other side of the door, but he doesn't know if the people are there to kill or just to steal things. Gao Peng immediately calls the police to report that someone wants to do something evil to him. On the other hand, the two men were inside the studio searching for something to steal. Then one man saw the other door with a light and said he thinks some equipment is still in operation. The two men walked closer to the door and saw that it was the laboratory. Then they said there should be valuable materials inside and they should go inside and check. The two men enter the laboratory and saw a big container with blue liquid, and there is something inside the container that made them wonder what is it. The man who's currently holding a small centipede said it's definitely very valuable and they should smash it first. Suddenly the centipede bites the man's hand, which made the man shout in pain while growing a big arm. Then the other man throws a big hammer. On the other hand, Gao Peng was hiding behind the curtain and thinks the situation is bad because if the men destroy the experimental cylinder, Stripey's evolution will most likely fail, and Gao Peng knows he needs to stall them. Then Gao Peng called the two men, which made the two men shocked. Gao Peng shows himself and tells the two men that they must be tired after such thorough searching. Then he asks the two men if they want to take a seat and have some tea. The two men just look at each other, then suddenly one of the men attacked Gao Peng using a big hammer, which made Gao Peng drop to the ground bleeding. One man asks his partner if Gao Peng is dead, and his partner said if Gao Peng is not dead, he will be soon. The man said Gao Peng messed with him and that was his consequence, while the container behind them slowly broke. And the virtual screen said the dark evolution of the shield demon armored spider was a success. The two men were busy stealing things inside the laboratory while they were being watched by something. Suddenly that something walked toward the two men, then Stripey attacked them. The police car arrived outside the building. Then the police walked toward the studio and saw that the main door of the studio has been destroyed. Suddenly one police officer smelled blood. Then the police officers run inside the studio because they think the caller might endanger. The officer arrived at the laboratory where they saw two men laying on the ground dead. The two officers were shocked and said the two men were brutally killed and they should hurry to report to the chief. Suddenly Gao Peng asks them if they are the police, which made the police officer shocked and point their guns at Gao Peng, and tells Gao Peng to put his hands over his head and get down, which Gao Peng did and said he was the one who called the police. The police officer saw Gao Peng with Stripey protecting him. Gao Peng introduced himself and said he is the victim and they can check his information. After the incident at the police station, one of the police officers was shouting, asking Gao Peng why did he kill the intruders. Gao Peng responded that it was self-defense. The policeman angrily asks if continuing to attack the intruders after they've died is considered self-defense. Gao Peng responded that the intruders were the ones who attacked him first. Then he asks the police officer if they can't see the wound on his head. The policeman shouts at Gao Peng to say that he shouldn't change the topic and he should answer his question honestly. Suddenly someone knocks on the door. Tang with a police chief opens the door. Then the police chief said the result of the investigation is out and the two people who died are the ones who broke and entered and attempt to murder. Gao Peng only acted out of self-defense and Gao Peng was free to go. Outside the police station, Gao Peng asks Tang if his grandfather knows what happened to him. She responded yes, and she said his grandfather was extremely angry and worried when he heard that he was sent to the police station. Then she asks Gao Peng how is his injury and if he wants to go to the hospital. Gao Peng said most of his injuries were absorbed by Stripey and he only has some flesh wounds. Then Gao Peng pointed to the bandage on his face and said he did it himself because in the current situation, if he didn't have an injury, he would have been instantly charged with murder. Tang held Gao Peng's shoulder and she said Gao Peng did well because to be kind to the enemy is to be cruel to himself. Then she asks Gao Peng to go home and rest well because she'll take care of the rest. Gao Peng comes back to his apartment and directly lay on his bed to rest. Suddenly he feels that there was an intruder beside his bed standing. The intruder attacked him, but fortunately he avoided it. Gao Peng said he thought the man is dead. The man responded that he had crawled out of hell to take revenge on him. The man continuously attacks Gao Peng while saying he knows that when the spider was killing them, Gao Peng wasn't unconscious at all. Then he asks Gao Peng why he didn't stop the spider. The man also said Gao Peng could have let the spider trap them with its spider web and then hand them over to the police. If Gao Peng do that, they wouldn't have died that way. Gao Peng responded they wanted to kill him, and they need to learn how to be ruthless if they want to survive in this world. Suddenly someone grabbed Gao Peng's shoulder, which made Gao Peng shocked. And then the man who was holding a big hammer behind him tells him that he should explain to the King of Hell, then attacked Gao Peng using a big hammer. Gao Peng wakes up in shock. Then he sits up while can't believe that he dreams about the intruders, and he wonders if he was scared that the intruders come to take his life or if is it just because of guilt. Gao Peng also thinks his bond isn't as strong as he thought it was. Then he looks at his beast sleeping next to his bed while thinking about life springs from sorrow and calamity. Death comes from ease and pleasure. For their sake, he must conquer himself. The next day, in some place, the chief military announced that yesterday, the New World Allied government united the world's top 12 monster trainer organizations and monster trainer leagues and applied strict control measures to all monster trainers. The Monster Hunting Association and the Monster Breeder Association have also announced their involvement in the Monster Trainer League, thus becoming the Monster Hunter Department and the Monster Breeder Division. They have also officially introduced the classification criteria of the familiars, thus dividing familiars into 4 categories, and it was Ordinary Tier, Elite Tier, Commander Tier, and Lord Tier. The chief said everyone can apply for a certificate based on the new classification, and when entering competitions and missions, priority will be given to those who possess certificates. The chief also announced that the year's first Monster Trainer College entrance examination is to be held in tandem with the Monster Trainer League and the New World Allied government. As the exam comes closer, the difficulty of the training will be increased, and for today's monster is an elite tier skull-winged blue bat. The chief said as encouragement, if they beat the skull-winged blue bat, the monster will be given to them as a prize. The monster is named a skull-winged blue bat. Its condition is healthy and sleeping. The bat level is 20 elite tier and its grade is excellent. Also, the bat attribute is a ghoul and its weakness are light and wind. One of the students said he'll go first. Behind him is his beast named Electric Luster Bear in a growth period. The bear is level 18 and its grade is excellent, and once matured and evolved into Commander Tier, will be demoted to normal grade status. The bear's attribute is electric and its condition is healthy and happy. Also, the bear's weakness said devouring the water spirit fruit could cause diarrhea and weaken its 4 limbs. The chief said that he should do his best, while the other student said the man who want to go first named Chen Hengqiao, and Hengqiao successfully evolved his familiar into an electric luster bear during the wilderness training. Gao Peng thinks the bear has an excellent grade and is level 18. Compared to the other familiars, he thinks the electric luster bear is not bad. The bear enters the cage and looks at the blue bat who currently sleeping upside down in the ceiling of the cage. Then the bear screamed, but the blue bat still peacefully sleeping, which made the bear stun for a second. Then the bear got angry and tries attack the blue bat, which made the blue bat wake up and dash behind the bear. Then the blue bat attacked the bear with supersonic, which made Hengqiao shocked. And then the chief called the medic team. Hengqiao cried while his bear was being treated by the medic team. On the other hand, Gao Peng, who was looking from behind, thinks the supersonic attack of the blue bat is good. And there was only a 2-level difference between the bear and the blue bat, yet the bear was defeated with 1 blow. The chief asks the students who want to try, but the student avoided eye contact with the chief. Suddenly the chief looked at one of the students, but the student started to act that his stomach hurt while his dog beast is behind him. The chief said he can see that the students graduated from the drama academy, and he said they were always lively during normal training, but now they chickening out. Suddenly someone raised a hand, then Gao Peng said he'll go next while Dummy was behind him, which made the students say Gao Peng had never fallen out of the top 5, and the other student cheered Gao Peng. Dummy enters the cage, then grabs his cape and throws it away. Dummy immediately jumps to each side of the cage and ready his fist to attack. Then Dummy punched the blue bat, but the bat avoided it. Still, Dummy grazed the skulls in its head. The man from last time said Dummy is so cool and is grateful that Gao Peng didn't take them seriously before. The owner of the monkey agrees, and he said though Dummy attack didn't hit the blue bat, it managed to graze the blue bat. Then the man looks at his scared gorilla and said they should work hard too. The blue bat attacked Dummy using its supersonic, while the other students who are watching said if Gao Peng's familiar could fly, the situation wouldn't be so tense anymore. Gao Peng heard the other students and smiled because he already formulated a plan for Dummy right from the start. Although Dummy can't fly, its other stats are all higher than the blue bat, so as long as Dummy continues to wear it out, the blue bat's attack frequency is decreasing. Then Dummy jumps behind the blue bat ready to attack. Then he smashed the blue bat to the ground using brute force. Dummy gets down and punches the blue bat in the ground continuously. Then Dummy grabs and lifts the defeated blue bat out of the cage. Gao Peng faces the chief military and asks if the chief will keep his word and if he can do as he pleases with the skull-winged blue bat. The chief agreed and said he can do whatever he want with it. Then Gao Peng asked the other students if there was anyone who is interested in the blue bat, and it will cost them not 199, not 299. But 500 alliance credits. Gao Peng also said if they miss out on the deal today, they would not know when they can get another chance to get a top-tier familiar, which made the chief shocked. Ting walked closer to Gao Peng and she said he want to buy it. Gao Peng asked Ting if she really wants to buy the blue bat, and Gao Peng said among the flying type monster, the skull-winged blue bats aren't able to fly high or fast. The bat only can bully monsters that can't fly. Living that sort of lifestyle will only guarantee the blue bat's destruction when it meets large monsters. Gao Peng tells Ting to think carefully. Even though its flying ability is its advantage, it's a bit embarrassing. Ting tells Gao Peng to stop fussing, and he may look down on the skull-winged blue bat, but they value it a lot. Then she said he have transferred the alliance credits to him. Gao Peng happily checked his phone and said Ting is straightforward and he didn't know that Ting is a rich little lady. Gao Peng also tells Ting that it comes as a package, and he will give her a discount if she will come to find him to level up the blue bat grade. The evening come, Gao Peng was looking at the transport truck on his phone, and he said the transport truck has 16 wheels in total. The huge wheels support the detachable rear storage space, and there are 2 layers of reinforced guardrails around the truck. It also has interwoven silver and black stripes with a matte glaze as the base color. Gao Peng thinks the truck is simple, yet the unpretentious look is strong and domineering. Then Gao Peng tells Dummy that they should buy it, because the Steel Black Dragon Series 3 is his dream car, and the driver's seat is a bit larger than a typical off-road vehicle. Also, the interior is luxurious. Gao Peng said he can store all of his beasts inside. Then Gao Peng looked at Dummy and said the most important thing is that the truck style suits him well, strong and domineering, the qualities of a real man, while Tang Tang heard all his words behind him and looked at Gao Peng in confusion. She coughed to clear his voice, which made Gao Peng look behind him shocked. Gao Peng saw Tang Tang and he asked if she was taking her cat for a walk. She responded that it was just an average cat and that it was dirty when she first found it. The cat's hair wasn't long and had green mucus running out of its nose. The monster is named Night Shadow Cat. It was level 36 commander and had a perfect grade. The cat's skills are Shadow Power level 2, and its weaknesses are it cannot eat white leaf catnip because its limbs will become unbalanced and will turn into something indescribable. The cat was confused, then it tried to jump off at her hand, while she tells the cat that she take back her words and said the cat's fur was already long when she first found it, but the cat angrily jumped to the ground and walk away. Gao Peng tells Tang Tang that her cat has quite the attitude. She responded that her cat named Softy has a bit of a temper, but he shouldn't mind it. Then she asks Gao Peng why he hasn't moved to the villa he bought in the suburbs. Gao Peng said a lot of things have been going on lately, so he didn't have time to pack his things. She grabs Gao Peng's shoulder and said the number of his familiars are increasing, and it's inconvenient for his apartment with the lack of space. She also said she knows Gao Peng doesn't actually want to leave, but the current place is his home, so he can come back anytime. Gao Peng lowered his head and agreed. Gao Peng opened his apartment door that was almost empty. Then he picked up the picture on the table and called his mother and father. Gao Peng said he's about to move out, and he remembered that his parents always tell him that when a child grows up, he will leave, and he thinks he has grown up now. Gao Peng touched his parents' picture and said he was moving to a big villa that he bought himself, and he can live alone in this world. Then he tells his parents to not worry about him. Gao Peng sat on the side of his bed while holding a picture of his parents, and he tells his parent that his grandfather seemed to have met with some trouble, so he will go help his grandfather after he finishes the college entrance exam. After all, his grandfather is the only relative he had. The monster trainer examination day come. At the venue, the huge truck parked in the parking lot, which made the people shocked. The truck door opens, and Gao Peng and his beasts get off the truck. Gao Peng happily said the monster trainer college entrance examination is finally starting. Then Gao Peng and his beasts line up, while the speaker said all the candidates should line up and enter in an orderly manner. Also, they need to show their admission ticket at the checkpoint. Gao Peng showed his ticket to the officer and greet him. The officer explains that Gao Peng and his familiars are to go through the 2 doors separately, and if he has signed a blood contract with his familiar, the light on the machine will turn green, and then he'll be able to enter the examination venue, which Gao Peng and his beasts passed. Suddenly, the machine light turns red. The military tells the student to try again, and Gao Peng notice it. The student bear beast screams and runs to pass through the machine. The military immediately called to send the Silver Moon Wolves as reinforcements. The Silver Wolves arrived and attacked the bear beast. The Silver Wolves bite the bear, which made the owner shocked. Then the military asks the student to explain why his familiar suddenly goes berserk. The student kneeled on the ground and said he was wrong and the bear is his father's familiar, and he brought it from home secretly while his father was at work because he just wanted to pass the examination. Then he begged the military to not remove his exam qualification. The military sigh and help the student stand up. The military tells the student that he is a man, and he shouldn't just kneel because the most important thing for a man is to have dignity. Then the student thanks the military examiner, but the military tells the student that he shouldn't thank him too early because rules are rules. The military said the student is already informed beforehand that the exam doesn't allow familiars that are not their own. Offenders are disqualified from the test. Then he asked the student to come back next year. Then the other military dragged the student away while the student cried because he wanted to take the exam. Gao Peng, who witnessed everything, sigh and thinks the student has the guts to try and cheat in the monster trainer college examination, while the military gave him a nameplate and tells him to not lose it. Gao Peng and his beasts walk to the entrance while thinking if they want to pass the examination, they have to rely on their own strength. Gao Peng looked at his nameplate and saw it was A5. Gao Peng wondered if the rankings aren't divided according to the Commander, Elite, and Normal tiers. Gao Peng also wonders if someone has a Lord tier familiar, will they create an S area just for them. Then Gao Peng walked toward the barrier to look down while thinking that he's overthinking it. It's absolutely impossible for someone to have a Lord tier familiar at their level. Gao Peng knows that there are only 8 venues in area. It means that there are at least 7 monster trainers who have Commander tier familiars. When he looked down, he saw a girl with her beast, and Gao Peng saw that the name of the girl's beast is a black anaconda. It was level 25 and its grade is excellent. Then he looked to the other side and saw a boy with a tiger beast. Gao Peng said this was the first time he had seen a tiger-type familiar, and he knows that the boy is definitely not an ordinary person. After all, there were already very few tigers before the Cataclysm, even with the enhanced reproduction ability they've received after the Cataclysm. Tiger-type monsters are still currently scarce. Gao Peng thinks he was right. Area B has mostly elite tier familiars while Area C has all normal tier familiars. However, Dummy is only at level 20, so it's only an elite tier familiar despite possessing the strength of Commander tier familiar. Gao Peng thinks there really is no shortage of geniuses in their world, and being surrounded by Commander tier familiars makes him feel like a husky that has strayed into a pack of wolves. Then Gao Peng walked towards an Area A, where the top 8 monster trainers in Chang'an City were. Meanwhile, in the other room, the military officer is looking at the Area A numbers on the CCTV. Colonel said the 8 people in Area A are the 8 strongest youngsters in Chang'an City. Commander Tan said only 6 of them are the youngest, and among them 2 are older. One is 21 years old and the other is 20, and their familiars were probably only recently promoted to the Commander tier. Compared to the real geniuses, they're quite far away. Colonel responded, but who can truly measure something like talent? And he only knows that the Area A members are the only 8 monster trainers out of the 30,000 in Chang'an City who have Commander tier familiars. The general said everyone, each nation on Earth saw the signs a decade ago. A small number of monsters started to appear in areas that weren't inhabited by humans. They thought that they'd be able to control the situation, but they still lost. And in order to prevent mass panic, textbooks and other various records state that the change occurred only 3 years ago. Then the general shouted to say that's why he doesn't want any accidents in the exam, because the students are their future. The military said they can assure the general that all the soldiers stationed at the Monster Trainer College entrance examination were selected through a strict process, and every part of the exam is being carefully monitored by cameras. The military man also said they adopted a 1-to-1 monitoring method, and each camera is monitored by one person. If any problem occurs, not only will the person who committed the crime to be responsible, but the person responsible for monitoring that portion will also be punished. Meanwhile, in Area A, Dummy and Gao Peng were in the battle court and the speaker asks Gao Peng to prepare. The cage slowly opens, which releases smoke. Then the scorpion shows itself. The scorpion monster's name is a lakeside giant scorpion. It was a level 22 commander and its weaknesses are electric type, and the scorpion doesn't have any carapace beneath its body, making that part more vulnerable. Gao Peng orders Dummy to attack the scorpion's side because it's the scorpion's weakness, which Dummy immediately understands and runs toward the scorpion. Dummy jumped behind the scorpion, which made the scorpion confused. But before Dummy can attack it, the scorpion noticed Dummy behind it. Then the scorpion attacked Dummy using its tail, which made Dummy fall to the ground. The scorpion used the opportunity and faced Dummy to attack. Gao Peng worriedly looks at Dummy and thinks it's not easy to overcome the difference in levels. The scorpion attacked Dummy. Fortunately, Dummy caught its claw. Dummy shakingly tried to stop the attack to hit him, while the virtual screen showed Dummy's level increased and Dummy's level is 21, promoted to Commander tier. Gao Peng was happy that Dummy leveled up, but the scorpion and Dummy is at a standstill, and the scorpion still has the upper hand. And if you compare the scorpion and Dummy's grades in a one-on-one ring match, even if he were to own more than one familiar, he wouldn't be able to summon the both of them into battle at the same time. Also, Gao Peng knows that once a monster is promoted to the Commander tier, it'll have all kinds of incredible power. Its powers will grow exponentially during that time. The scorpion is able to control water within a close range after its awakening, and it's using it continuously to erode Dummy, which made Gao Peng wonder what he should do. Suddenly Gao Peng was shocked to see that Dummy obtained a new ability. Gao Peng uses his telepathy to communicate with Dummy and tells him that besides strengthening some important joints, he should use the remaining blood treads to strengthen his legs. Dummy understands, then he put the remaining blood treads on his leg. Then he kicks the scorpion in its face, which made Dummy ability greatly strengthen the bone. Defense and attack increased. Also, Dummy's skills bone harden increased in level 1. Gao Peng smiled because, with the explosive force gained by gathering the blood threads in Dummy's new ability, the Scorpion's exoskeleton can't possibly withstand Dummy's attack. The Bone Harden, although it's not as cool as having thunder or fire ability, is suitable for Dummy's crude and simple close-range fighting style. The half of Scorpion's face was shattered. Then the Scorpion tried to counterattack Dummy using its tail even though it has suffered heavy injuries, but Dummy grabbed the tail of the Scorpion and then threw the Scorpion in the air. Then Dummy strengthened his hand with blood thread, then attacked the Scorpion's vital point. Gao Peng shouted to praise Dummy, then Dummy ran toward Gao Peng and lifted him up to hug, which made Gao Peng shocked. Dummy thanks Gao Peng and he said if weren't for Gao Peng, he would still be an ape that's locked in a cage somewhere. Gao Peng said the victory is a result of his own hard work. Then Gao Peng pointed at angry Dazai and said Dazai is getting jealous because they've been hugging for so long. Dazai said Gao Peng just tell him that they just hugged for a second, but it was 5 seconds now. Then Dazai jumped toward Gao Peng because he won a hug too, which made Gao Peng shocked. Gao Peng tried to push Dazai away while looking at the other examiners, and he noticed that the other examiners killed their opponent faster than he is, and there were no visible injuries on their familiars' bodies. Gao Peng thinks the girl candidates and her familiar sure are something. Meanwhile, the military officer witnessed how the girl win against a commander tier familiar without breaking a sweat. Colonel asks if the girl is from Jun Heng's family. One of the military men said he remembered the girl named Jun Mei Lai and she was Young Heng's only daughter. The general said they are ridiculous and he said he had seen the girl before. The girl has a cold personality, but she's a nice girl. Also, the girl's full name's Jun Moi. One of military officers said he heard Moi didn't go to school after her senior year in high school. Moi just invited a few tutors to her house and spent the rest of her time with an expatriate team of the New World Allied Government. Commander Tan said it was true, and Moi is a trainee of the New World Allied Government's Black Flag. The military officer said Moi should be extremely talented. One of the militaries changed the topic and said the monster trainer next to Moi is quite good too, and his familiar's a ghoul type. He said it's quite rare to see that kind of beast. Colonel said it was one of his students. Colonel also said Gao Peng is the youngest monster breeder in Chang'an City and Gao Peng helped out during the Dead Leaf Locusts incident. The one military said no wonder Gao Peng looks familiar, and he remembered Gao Peng was the youngster Director Feng recommended before. On the other hand, the general was watching Gao Peng on the CCTV, and he said that the old man sure has a good grandson. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the military tells Moi that they finished the exam and she can leave first. But before Moi leaves, she notices Gao Peng praising Dazai on the other battlefield stage, and she thinks Gao Peng is quite something because he defeated a commander tier with an elite tier familiar. Their third exam arrived. Gao Peng and Stripey are waiting for their opponent to come out. Gao Peng saw it was a dead leaf mantis. It was level 16 and has a normal grade. The mantis attribute is wood and its weakness is fire. Gao Peng thinks Stripey attribute is earth while the mantis is wood, and that gives Stripey an advantage. Gao Peng was sure that Stripey will have a 10% point bonus. The mantis starts to walk like human, then Gao Peng wonder if it imitates human behavior, and he thinks it has pretty good intelligence that is similar to the intelligence of an 8 or 9 years old human child. Gao Peng knows that Stripey's spirituality isn't low either, it's 2 grades higher than the mantis, and he thinks the match will finally let Stripey gain some confidence. Stripey and the mantis were in the position when the speaker said the exam start now. The mantis looks at shaking Stripey. Then the mantis starts to move like dancing, which made Stripey confused. Then Stripey expression lit up, which made Gao Peng said Stripey expression is giving him a bad feeling. Then Stripey started to move and dance, which made the mantis confused too. Stripey tells Gao Peng that the mantis also knows how to square dance, which made Dazai laugh. Gao Peng tells Stripey that the mantis tried to scare him, and the mantis wants to attack him, so he needs to strike back. Stripey sadly asks Gao Peng if the mantis is not playing with him. Suddenly the mantis attacked Stripey, which made Stripey confused, and asked if the mantis saw a mosquito, but the mantis's hand had a small crack. Then the mantis jumps and flies in the air, but Stripey attacks it using his web, which made the mantis land on the ground while trapped in Stripey's web. Stripey looks at the mantis confused and asks Gao Peng why the mantis is so weak. Suddenly the mantis broke the web and run towards Stripey, and then it hit Stripey with its claw that has aura, which hurts Stripey's forehead that made Stripey angry. Then Stripey jumps each side of the cage and attacked the mantis in one hit, which made the instructor shocked. The instructor tells Gao Peng that his exam is finished and he shouldn't dilly-dally around the exam site. Since his exam is done, he should head out. Gao Peng understand and said okay. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, other students said it's been an hour, but the first batch hasn't come out yet. The other student responded that only Moi from Area A has finished the exam, and Moi has a military background. Suddenly, the waiting area door slowly opened, which made the other students wonder if someone finished the exam. Gao Peng and his beasts come out of the door, which made the other students shout that it was Gao Peng from Area A. And they think people are already heading home while they're still stuck there queuing, and it's the true difference in strength. Also, other student thinks Gao Peng is such a poser. After the exam, Gao Peng decided to check something and he was shocked by what he saw. Gao Peng wondered if the ruined villa is the new villa he bought and if the villa get run over by 100 huskies. Gao Peng goes inside the villa and saw that his villa was destroyed, which made Gao Peng shocked. Suddenly Gao Peng noticed something behind his sofa. Then he angrily orders Stripey and Dazai to get the guy who trashed his house that had the guts to stay at the crime scene. Dummy steps forward in front of Gao Peng and Gao Peng thinks Dummy is so considerate because he knows to protect him even without his command. Then Silly jumped toward Gao Peng, but Gao Peng catches Silly before it can sit in his head and shouted at it that sitting on his head won't make him stronger. On the other hand, Dazai and Stripey caught the monster, and Dazai asks Gao Peng if he can eat it. Gao Peng looks at the bird and wonders what kind of monster it is. Suddenly Tang Tang called Gao Peng through his broken window. Tang Tang said the little bird is a housewarming gift from his grandfather, and he should keep it because his grandfather put in a lot of effort to get the little bird. Then she said she still had some things to do, so she won't be staying for dinner. Gao Peng realizes that he was right, that she was building a new villa next to him in a few days, so it's more convenient for her to take care of and protect him. Gao Peng also thinks the housewarming she said is more like house wrecking while he feeding Silly a juice. Then Gao Peng ordered Dummy to lift the bird up. Dummy lift the bird while Gao Peng look at it, and he said the red-crowned crane with only one leg is quite uncommon. Then he ordered Dummy to loosen up a bit and don't strangle the bird to death. Suddenly the bird opened its eye and angrily attacked Gao Peng, which made Gao Peng shocked and said the bird is a good actor. Also, he realizes he needs to intimidate the bird for it to learn its place. Gao Peng turns around and tells Dazai that they have a roast crane for dinner, which made the bird shocked. Then the bird cries. Gao Peng look at it and ask if it's still going to act tough, and he said they should see what he exactly are. The bird's monster's name is a flaming red crane that's still in infancy. The bird level is 6 and its present grade is epic, and when promoted to commander tier, its grade would become perfect. When promoted to lord tier, its grade would change to excellent. The bird's attribute is fire and its special characteristic is unawakened. Also, the bird requirements for promotion are 500 Jin of Burning Heaven Crystal, 3 Prime Mystery Fruits, and 1 Fire Marrow Pulp. Gao Peng said although the flaming red cane has the same grade as Dummy, it will automatically reach Lord tier when it grows up. Dummy's promotion to Commander tier was only because he received enlightenment after fighting in numerous battles, and he thinks the bird Lord tier familiar will surely be a very powerful monster in the future. While Dazai looked at the bird dreaming it was food. Gao Peng looked at the bird while handling a pack of mealworms and said once he enter his house, he become his familiar, then he give the bird a mealworm, which made Dazai sad because it was his mealworm treats. Gao Peng bends down to face the bird and tell that since he has 3 flames in his name, he'll call the bird Flamey, while Dazai is in the side angry and sad, and was Silly floating to Dazai offering his juice to Dazai. Then Gao Peng touched the bird's head and tried to establish a contract with it. Gao Peng enters the mind of Flamey, then he saw some spot in it, and he thinks the clarity of a familiar's consciousness is a direct correlation to the familiar's intelligence. Gao Peng also thinks the bright spots must be Flamey memories. Gao Peng saw Flamey's mother in the forest near the pod and the alligator in the was pod lurking. Then the alligator eats Flamey's mother. Gao Peng sadly holds the crying Flamey because he realizes Flamey also lost his mother. Then he asks Flamey if he is willing to be his partner, which the contract paper appeared. Flamey asks Gao Peng if he can help him get revenge. Gao Peng responded that if he signs the blood contract, he'll be one of them and his problem will become Gao Peng's problem. Then Flamey signed the contract that made the contract successful. Gao Peng look around in shock because he is still in Flamey's consciousness. Suddenly Dummy, Dazai, Silly, and Stripey's contract appeared. The light from his 5 familiars contract goes to him and he thinks it's the knowledge of the familiars. Gao Peng wonders if it is a new life-saving ability, an elemental barrier. It consumes the energy of his familiars and then transforms it into a barrier to protect himself. Gao Peng knows that isn't a rare ability, and he remembers seeing someone use it in the first round of the exam. And it turns out that every time a familiar is promoted to Commander tier, Lord tier, and Emperor tier, each one of them will gain new life-saving abilities. Therefore his new ability must have appeared during Dummy's promotion to Commander tier. And the words battles should be handled by familiars. Monster trainers should hide behind the familiars and not be a liability. That popped up at Gao Peng that he doesn't recognize, but he can understand. Gao Peng thinks it was weird that a monster trainer is a profession that's been handed down by the previous generation. The blood contract states that the memories passed down from previous generations will be unlocked as the familiar becomes stronger. Then he wonders if could it be that there are existing monster trainers in other places. Gao Peng set aside his question because it was out of his reach, but his life-saving abilities are branded in the depths of one's soul, and he thinks there's no way that he teaches the moves to other people. Gao Peng also understands the word Tang Tang told before that he should keep the shifting constellations ability a secret because people would definitely place their attention on him if they find out that he has a life-saving ability that can be shifted to another person without any restrictions. Gao Peng realizes that Tang Tang and his grandfather are way scarier than he thought, and he doesn't know if he'll be any of help to his grandfather with his current ability. The next day, Dummy, Dazai, and Stripey are training outside the villa while Gao Peng reads a book and relaxing on the side. On the other hand, Flamey looks at the tree, then Flamey attacked the tree using its beak continuously. Gao Peng noticed it and said Flamey has hatred rooted deeply in his heart and Flamey's is training so hard just so he can avenge his mother one day. Then Gao Peng started to find Silly because he notices Silly's missing and he remembers Silly just spinning in a circle a while ago because he was afraid Flamey would eat him. Then he found Silly sleeping in the bush and he said Silly's can fall asleep easily without caring that Flamey can eat him. Gao Peng back to reading and said the days have been so relaxed lately, ever since his grandfather gave him a limitless credit card, and the monster breeder has become a hobby to him. Gao Peng also said the book he's reading is by director Feng and it was really good. Then Gao Peng sits back and clicks the digital bracelet in his hand because he remembers the exam result is released today. The virtual screen said the account has been logged in from another location and the location of the login is in the Southern Sky Group Temple Tower, Yuzhou. Gao Peng realized his grandfather saw it first, which made his grandfather sneeze and wonder who talking ill about him behind his back in the other place. Gao Peng doesn't mind his grandfather and clicks the virtual screen to check his result. The virtual screen showed his name, age, and the score is 710 points. Also, Gao Peng total score for all 3 exams is 700 and his additional score is 10. Gao Peng happily saw that his ranking is the first place in Chang'an City and he said he did well. Suddenly his phone rang and it was an unknown number. Gao Peng answered it and the person on the other line said Gao Peng have qualified to take part in the second round of the Monster Trainer College entrance examination. Then the person in the other line asks him to go to the venue where the first round took place on June 27th at 9 in the morning. The exam will last 15 days. Gao Peng does not need to bring keys, clothes, or toiletries. Gao Peng hang up the phone and look at Flamey. Gao Peng said since he didn't sign the blood contract with Flamey before taking part in the exam, Flamey won't be able to participate, and he need to find a place for Flamey to stay for a few days. Suddenly, Tang Tang greet Gao Peng with a good morning which made Gao Peng wonder if isn't too coincidental. Gao Peng thinks his grandfather already knows his score and the exam regulations were announced earlier, so it's not hard to guess that he'll need someone to foster Flamey. His grandfather probably even knew when Tang Tang had called to inform him to take the exam, and already planned it secretly. Then Gao Peng look at the excited expression of Tang Tang and he thinks she just wants him to hurry up and ask her. Gao Peng thinks Tang Tang and his grandfather really like to worry, then he asks her if can she look after his Flamey for half a month. She happily asks why Gao Peng is so cordial, then she said Gao Peng need to relax and leave it to her, she'll feed Flamey so well that it gets fat. Then Gao Peng look at her and Flamey wondering why he feels like Tang Tang's words is not an empty promise. Meanwhile, in another villa in Chang'an City, the guy was angrily asking how can he be in second place when he saw with his own eyes that he and Gao Peng both have 3 familiars, 1 commander tier and 2 elite tier. The lady called the man young master and explained that one of Gao Peng familiars is an earth type and the monster it fought against was a wood type and that gave Gao Peng 10-point advantage. The man angrily slams his fist on the table and shouts that he doesn't care and he won't let what happened go that easily. On the other hand, Gao Peng and the other player were waiting in the venue. Gao Peng notices that only a few people are there and he wonders if they arrived quite early. The military instructor said it's look like everyone has arrived. Then he greets the examiners and introduces himself as the person in charge of the round of the exam. Gao Peng wonders how can there be a second round with only 8 people, and if they going to assign the top 10 rankings among the 8 people. The instructor said the second round will take place in the Sun Mountain National Forest part that's within the base city of Jiangnan, and the exam won't take part in a ring nor will it be a one-on-one battle. It will take part in the forest, and they will be fighting against real wild monsters, which made the examiners shocked and ask why do they need to go so far suddenly. The instructor explained the Sun Mountain Forest Park has been scouted by top monster trainers. They have ruled out the possibility of the presence of any Lord tier monsters. However, there are no fewer than 500 Commander tier monsters in the Sun Mountain Forest Park, and some of them are peak Commander tier monsters. The instructor also said that in principle, the government and the Monster Trainer League will ensure their well-being and give them all a flare gun to use in an emergency situation. However, since it is a virgin forest that has at least 500 Commander tier monsters in it, the second round of the exam isn't mandatory. Then the instructor asks them to make their decisions now. One of the examiners apologized to the handler and said they think it was still dangerous. Then he asked if they can withdraw. The instructor responded it was fine and that he understand. He also said it's not embarrassing at all. Then he asks if there's anyone else who wants to withdraw. Moi raised her hand and asks if she doesn't need her parents' approval to join. The instructor responded that according to the rules, they don't need their approval, but then the instructor knows that Moi parents aren't just any normal parents. Then Moi said she want to sign up, leaving the instructor to say he was just a lowly handler. The instructor looked at the 6 examiners who want to stay, and then he said the 6 of them will be representing Chang'an City, and all candidates from the military cities in the Huaxia region will also be joining them in the exam. Then the instructor tells the examiners that they should do well and make Chang'an City proud. One examiner approached Gao Peng and introduced his name as Wang Zhengshan. Then he asked him what Gao Peng's name was. Gao Peng smiled and introduced himself. Then Wang happily shakes Gao Peng's hand and said he really wanted to meet him. Then Wang put his arm around shoulder of Gao Peng and said the others are all from wealthy families. If they aren't from political families, then they're second generation nouveau rich, or their parents are powerful monster trainers, and they were the only 2 muggles, which made Gao Peng said to his mind that he was not a muggle either. Wang asks Gao Peng if have any companies scouted him because a few companies came looking for him right after the exam. Gao Peng responded not really, and he thinks his grandfather or Tang Tang shooed the companies away for him. Wang taps Gao Peng's shoulder and said it was fine because his number 1 in Chang'an City, maybe they're still thinking of a suitable price to scout him. Then Wang introduces his comrade God Ant Beast to Gao Peng. Wang said it mutated from a black ant to a god ant after it mistakenly ate something, so the name is a reference to the fact that the mutation was an act of God. The ant monster's name is Golden Devil Ant. It was a level 21 commander and its grade is excellent. The ant attribute is gold and its weaknesses are 1. The ant's joints are not protected by its shell. 2. The ants hate odors that cause irritations. Gao Peng thinks Han Zhao is lucky, as the saying goes, the poor rely on mutation and the rich rely on technology. It's very hard to train a familiar up to commander tier just through talent alone. If monster trainers don't come from a good background or don't have the necessary resources, they won't be able to acquire the items needed to speed up a familiar's growth, but he wonders why the system shows its name as Golden Devil Ant. Now Gao Peng thinking about the system, and wonders what exactly is the naming system based on, and the system has even shown him names that don't exist in any books or data. It's as if it has precognition abilities. The instructor tells them that their airplanes have arrived. Then he asks the examiners to get ready because they're about to depart. The examiners arrive in the base city of Zhongnan. Other people watching the plane down said the military actually mobilized a large group of people for a test, even using military planes to transport them. The other citizens said the examiners are the best and brightest out of thousands of candidates. The military region definitely needs to protect the geniuses. On the other hand, Gao Peng and his beast are waiting with the other examiners, wondering if the people with him are the other candidates in the exam. And he thinks there are a lot of people, close to 200. And almost every type of familiar is present. Then Gao Peng noticed one shy familiar being captured by other people while its owner trying to convince people to stop taking pictures. He said the familiar is made of granite and it's rare. The monster is named Vine-Covered Rock Monster. It was level 23 with a normal grade and its attribute is rock. The rock monster's condition is healthy but shy and its weaknesses are 1. Show type monsters. 2. The rock monster is afraid to have its picture taken. Suddenly the door opened and a man showed up. The man said since all the candidates have arrived, they will give out consent letters. In order to participate in the second round, they must sign in order to acknowledge the possibility of dying. The man also said the location of the test will be far away from the city. Even with their emergency flares, there is still a 10% mortality rate in their examination. The man looked at them seriously and said the exam isn't a joke. The estimated mortality rate takes their commander tier familiars into consideration. Then he asks the examiners to think carefully because they need to be responsible for their own future. Then the other military started to give the consent letter. Gao Peng read number 5 on the consent letter that said his life is his own responsibility, but in the event of death, he will be made a martyr and 1,000 alliance credits will be paid as compensation to his familiars. Gao Peng thinks 1,000 alliance credits are not even a small amount for big companies, and it means their exam is really very dangerous. The number 20 on the consent letter said the second round of the examination uses a point system. Within the forest of Sun Mountain, there are a lot of target pillars set up. Destroying the pillars and killing the monster will grant him points, which made Gao Peng think a competitive pressure is high. The man said since everyone has looked at the consent letters and been given the details of the second round of the exam, he'll now announce some information about the third round. The man explained that they will choose the top 12 candidates with the highest points to take part in the third round, and the third round is said to exceed the boundaries of the Monster Trainer College entrance examinations. It even has its own name, the Alliance's Strongest Youth Monster Trainer General Assembly. Suddenly the man shouted that those who perform well, including their familiars, will be bestowed a title. Also, the last round of the competition will be broadcasted live globally. The battles between their familiars will be shown to everyone around the world, which made the candidates excited about a universally recognized title, but Gao Peng said they're so 8th grader. Then Gao Peng looked at his beasts and said he should think about it more. A title with the word king would be nice, and he thinks, after all, there are so many titles that suit him, which made Da Zai and Silly so done with him. At the Sun Mountain Forest entrance, the man in the helicopter said the second round of the examination will now begin, and they will officially start in 20 minutes. They need to head in the direction indicated by the helicopter's searchlight and reach the target destination within the time limit. Gao Peng tells Dummy, who's holding him, Silly, Da Zai, and Stripey to move. Dummy jumped high, ground by ground, until they saw a wall blocking their way. Gao Peng called Stripey, which Stripey understands and uses its web to hold in the tree branch and jump past the wall. Gao Peng thinks it was lucky that he has the shifting constellation technique, because if he didn't, he'd be cut open by all the branches from the speed they're going at. Suddenly Gao Peng heard someone shouting at his familiar to slow down. When he looked at the beast, he saw that the monster's name is a stellar white pig. The pig is level 25 with a perfect grade, and the condition of the monster is healthy and disgusted. Gao Peng knows that usually, the trainer is the dominant one in the trainer-familiar relationship. However, there are exceptional cases when it's reversed, especially if the trainer has a weak personality. Even so, getting despised by a pig is a bit sad. Then Gao Peng ran past the pig and its owner. Then Gao Peng and Silly give thumbs up to the owner and shouted, "All the best, pig riding boy." This made the boy wonder why would Gao Peng wish him, and he thinks Gao Peng must be a nut job. On the other hand, in television, the speaker said they have a candidate from Yanjing district and his registered familiar is a fire-type bird type. Tang Tang tells Chubby Flamey to relax because Gao Peng will appear on the TV soon. Then Flamey excitedly touched the TV because the TV showed Gao Peng, and the speaker said they have a candidate from Chang'an City. Gao Peng has 4 registered familiars, and Gao Peng is Chang'an City's top scorer. Gao Peng is also one of the popular candidates for the top 12. Tang Tang tells Flamey to eat more so he can become stronger, then he can follow in the footsteps of his master while holding a freshly cooked fish. Flamey sadly grabs one fish while Tang Tang happily looks at him. On the other hand, in the forest, the pig looks at Gao Peng and suddenly stops, which made its owner thrown in the ground. Gao Peng looked at the dizzy boy on the ground and said the pig is an irritable pig. The other examiners and their beasts arrived at the venue. Then the speaker shouts that it's time up, and the candidates who haven't reached yet are disqualified. Then the speaker in the helicopter said before they all enter Sun Mountain, he has a few things to say. He said right past the entrance they have placed field combat backpacks with compressed biscuits, canned food, and bottled water inside. It'll guarantee them an additional hour of survival in emergency situations, and each person may only take one. The speaker also said there were a total of 197 candidates for the second round examination, and in the end, 150 of them signed the agreement. The man said he was pleased because that is a higher percentage than they expected, and it seems there aren't many cowards among them. The man said he knows some of them had the experience of surviving in the wild and are proficient in doing so, whereas some of them have rarely been outside the city. But no matter which type they are, they all have to remember that the forest is going to be completely different than what they imagined. So his best advice for them all is to survive. Only by surviving can make them get a high score. Meanwhile, on the stage, the lady welcomes everyone to the special program, with a man by her side, and tell that through the tracking device on each candidate they are able to see their location. One audience tells his friend that the man sitting next to the lady is named Duan-woo from Didu's Dragon in the Cloud, and he thought Duan disliked taking part in the programs. His friend asks if Duan is famous. The man said the powerhouse in Didu place where many strong monster trainers gather are usually older, and Duan is among the few young powerhouses there, and Duan had quite the reputation. On the other hand, the lady pointed to the screen where Moi and her beasts were shown. The lady said in order to get the highest number of points, they can clearly see that most of the candidates have gone to the center of the forest. The point pillars are all basically situated within the center region of it, and as for now, the participant with the highest score is Jun Moi. The lady tells the viewers that the first place candidate is a girl, and that is most definitely unexpected. Then the lady asks what Duan thoughts about it. Duan responded it was not bad and that he believed that the species of snake is a black anaconda. The black anaconda's scale is shiny and its body is well built, so its grade should be rather high. Also, it seems like it's been raised well. Then from the battle perspective, the black anaconda must have fought in many battles, as it seems it is very strong in combat. This made the lady confused because she was asking Duan about the trainer, but he noticed the familiar instead. The lady awkwardly said Duan's analysis is spot on as always and Duan is indeed professional. But the lady heard they say Dragon in the Clouds. Duan is known to be hopelessly single, and his display today truly lives up to having an innate ability to stay single. The lady changed the topic and said since they'd seen who was the first place, they should look at the candidate who is currently in last place. Then she asks the audience to pay attention to the screen. The screen pointed to the high place and the lady said the candidate seems rather cautious because he has chosen high ground, and perhaps he was making some preparation. Then the lady asks the cameraman to zoom in a little. When the camera zoomed in, it was Gao Peng and his beasts resting. The lady looks at the screen and said the teenager seems to be really zen. To which Duan disagrees and said the candidate is just lazy. The audience wonders if the teenager is so lazy that the only thing they're willing to do is roll over. On the other hand, Gao Peng, who currently lying, said lying down is really comfy. Then he stand up to stretch and said the outer areas of the forest shouldn't be too dangerous now and they should also head over. Then Gao Peng pointed to something and happily said they should go into the woods. In the depth of the Sun Mountain forest, Gao Peng orders Silly to throw away the red-banded silver leaves they just picked because the blue light's golden rain flower they just saw is worth more than one alliance credit. Gao Peng also said they need to be prudent and thrifty. While they pick flowers, Dummy notices something. Dummy called Gao Peng while pointing to something. Gao Peng looked and saw a material named White Earth Sandstone. The material White Earth Sandstone can be used on Earth type and Sand type monsters. It can be used in small amounts to improve stomach health. The other use is it has the ability to attract monsters. Gao Peng said destroying the pillar will give him points, but he look at something and wonder what he need to do about the monster named Ghostwood Vine. It was level 22 commander tier and its grade is normal. The Ghostwood Vine attributes are poison and wood type and its weakness is a fire type. Gao Peng said the Ghostwood Vine hasn't moved an inch, and he wonders if it is pretending to be a normal vine. Gao Peng thinks it looks interesting and he decided since the vine seems to like acting so much, he'll give the vine a chance to earn a Golden Horse award. Then Gao Peng ordered Da Zai to make a fire. Then Da Zai uses electricity to the leaves to make a fire. The fire slowly crawled to the leaves near the vine, which made it say in fear that an experienced hunter must remain patient. The vine said he just had to wait a moment longer and an elite hunter must remain calm, but a small fire jumped into it. Then the vine shows itself while thinking he can't endure it any longer because it's too hot. Gao Peng called for Dummy, then Dummy attacked the vine, but the vine wrapped around to Dummy, then the vine tears off Dummy coat. Gao Peng said when hunting prey, it seems like the Ghostwood Vine will use its vines to envelop the enemy, and then use its knife-like leaves to lacerate the enemy until it either bleeds to death or its bones and organs are crushed by the pressure. But the vine is unlucky to have encountered Dummy. Dummy was shy because the vine tears off his coat, while Gao Peng said that for the level of vines to cut through Dummy's tough bones, it's no different than using sandpaper to polish an object. Then Gao Peng ordered Da Zai to finish the vine quickly, then Da Zai crawled toward the vine. Then Da Zai cut the vines, and Da Zai used his electricity to electrocute the Ghostwood Vine, which made Dummy shocked. Gao Peng said he didn't expect such an easy victory, but again, despite the vine being a commander tier, it was just recently promoted and it didn't have any chance to fight back against Dummy and Da Zai. While behind him, Dummy shaking Da Zai upside down because he shocked him and Da Zai explaining that he was helping him. Then Gao Peng pointed to the sandstone and ordered Dummy to crush it. Dummy punched the sandstone, which the sandstone broke into pieces and released some devices that made a noise. Gao Peng digital bracelet congratulate him on destroying a point pillar. Then he received 150 points, which made his current points 199 points. Gao Peng grabs the dead vine and asks his beast to give him a hand because there must be a monster core in its body, and they should search thoroughly. Since the fight was so intense, they don't know where the monster core is and it's valuable. While finding the vine core, Gao Peng heard the speaker say candidate Zhu has eliminated. Gao Peng said it was the 4th eliminated candidate so far, and he wonders if the monsters in Sun Mountain are really vicious, or is it not because of a monster. On the other hand, the rescuer touched the small bleeding pig on the ground and he said they were late and Zhu already dead. The rescuer asks his partner what they should do about Zhu's familiar. The man responded that they should take it back and give it to Zhu's family along with the boy's body. The rescuer put Zhu in the body bag and said the monster even punctured through Zhu's specially made protective glasses. Meanwhile, someone approached Gao Peng with his beast monster named Giant Monarch Scorpion, level 21. The owner of the scorpion asks why there's so much smoke and if a battle took place. Gao Peng wonders if the other candidates are there for the remains. Gao Peng realizes that the rules didn't state that candidates weren't allowed to battle each other during the test, but since it didn't say it's prohibited, he shouldn't put his guard down. The owner of the giant scorpion said Gao Peng is quick to snatch the point pillar and he should consider himself lucky. The man also said next time, the king of scorpions will be the one to surge to victory. Just as the mountains stay lush and the water keeps flowing, they're bound to meet again someday in the future, which made Gao Peng think the man had an 8th grader syndrome. On the other hand, on the stage, the lady looked at the screen and said it looks like there was no conflict between the two candidates. Then she explained that the examination doesn't actually prohibit fighting between the candidates, but it's definitely not a good thing. Duan responded that it's actually realistic that way. Duan also said the exam isn't a fighting match and they won't be stepping into a ring for one-on-one fights, but the real wilderness is crueler and bloodthirsty. He explained that in the wilderness, killing and looting are common occurrences. After killing a person, one could simply dump the body anywhere in the wild. There wouldn't be a scrap of bone that would remain the next day. It's not an important base city with cameras installed. It's a place with no rules to protect them, and in order to obtain treasures, precious monster parts, or even the offspring of powerful monsters, murder is quite common. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Sun Mountain forest, Gao Peng and his beast are finding and collecting materials. Gao Peng smells something rotten and he said the place is too quiet and that's weird. Then he tells his beast to keep a lookout for any suspicious movements while they're collecting materials. Suddenly something moves behind the bush that Stripey notices. Then the rabbit jumps out of it. Gao Peng said it was just a unicorn rabbit and it was a false alarm, which made his beasts relieve. Suddenly something showed up behind the bush and stabs the rabbit. Then it goes back to the bush leaving a dying rabbit on the ground. Gao Peng orders his beast to fall back while thinking that he can't see the monster's attribute just from a segment of its limb. He'll need to see much more of the monster before he can tell since it's hiding in the dark. He can't see it, but it can see them. Gao Peng knows it isn't the time to act tough. Gao Peng orders his beast to run. While running, Gao Peng knows that they still lack long-range offense attacks. Otherwise, they could probe the monster and get a look at it. He would be able to know its attributes and weaknesses. They wouldn't have to take such a passive approach. Gao Peng and his beasts run, while Gao Peng tells his beast that the distance between them now is about 40 to 50 meters and they were almost. Suddenly the monster's limbs showed up, which made Gao Peng shout that the situation is not good. Then the monster limbs attacked Gao Peng, which Dummy tried to block. But the monster limbs hits Gao Peng back, which made Dummy shocked. The damage transferred to Dazai that made Gao Peng shocked and said Dazai suffered such a heavy blow even with the elemental barrier skill. Dummy grabs the hurt Dazai and Gao Peng, while Gao Peng orders Stripey to use his spider silk. Stripey uses his skill, which made the monster's limbs trap. Meanwhile, in the surveillance room, one military said they can't let the corpse mutation dream insect continue anymore because it has already killed one monster trainer. The insect knows that the trainer has a weaker defense than the familiars, so it's attacking the trainer first. The man read the paper that said White Rose is currently 5 kilometers away from the target location, and she should arrive just in time for the rescue. The captain said one person already died at the hands of an insect monster, and if they have more fatalities, don't they think the governments are crazy? They said to be prepared for the possibility of death and that it's a more realistic experience and training for their cadets. The captain also said now that someone actually died, the governments are more anxious than anyone else. The military man responded that the military officer has always been like that and that isn't the first time. But the military man said Gao Peng is behaving a bit too cowardly. The captain responded that isn't cowardice, it was a strategy. Knowing when to advance and retreat, understanding when to give and take, that's are the most important factors for a successful individual. Every great general has lost a battle. Even if you were to think he's invincible, he'd eventually lose because of his own arrogance. The man fearfully said their captain is right. Then he asks his captain how Gao Peng know if he could beat the monster or not after such a brief encounter. Suddenly the man watching the CCTV shouted in shock. The monster was named Dream Stick Insect. It was a corpse type mutation. The insect is level 35 with excellent grades and its attribute are 1 wood type, 2 corpse type, The insect weaknesses are 1 fire type, 2 metal type, 3 within the region of its abdomen. There's a white spot that's the size of a rice grain, and attacking the white spot can cause fatal damage to the dream stick insect. The other small beast is running out of the forest, and Gao Peng said that just locating the insect's weak spot will cost him his life, and he should just forget about fighting it and run. The insect readied its limb, then it attacks and hit Stripey's leg, which made Stripey leg bleed. Gao Peng shouted at Stripey, but Stripey just shouted at Gao Peng to run while the monster was ready to kill Stripey. Angry Gao Peng shouted that they were not running anymore and they'll finish the insect off today. Then he said the insect's abdomen has a white spot that was the size of a rice grain and that its weak spot. Dummy angrily screams and uses his blood thread to harden his bone, then Dummy jumps toward the insect and punch it in the face. Gao Peng said the dream stick insect's main method of attack is to use its extendable spear-like limbs to impale enemies, but against a monster like Dummy with no flesh and blood, it'll have a hard time. The insect pierced Dummy using its limbs. Gao Peng thinks it's bad, although the insect won't be able to deal with any fatal injuries to Dummy. As of now, Dummy's stuck because of its limbs and can't pull back to launch any attacks. Dummy grabs the insect's limbs and holds it. Gao Peng realizes Dummy isn't stuck. Dummy is afraid that the enemy would attack them if they retreat. Then Gao Peng shouted Dummy to dodge the insect's attacks, and he doesn't need to force himself because they're already at a safe distance. Then he orders Dummy to counter the insects because he can beat it and he should try to find its weak spot first. Suddenly Dazai stand up, which made Gao Peng shocked. Dazai said he won't allow the insect to bully his friends, then Dazai crawled to the insect's body. On the other hand, in the sky above the Sun Mountain forest, the woman with his bird beast tells Gao Peng not to die yet. Below her, Gao Peng shouted at Dazai to crawl up to the insect's abdomen, while Dummy held one of the insect's limbs and Dazai crawled into its body. Dazai saw the white spot, but the other insect limbs attacked Dazai, which made Dazai fly in the air. Then the insect angrily stabs Dazai using its limb. Gao Peng and Silly shouted Dazai's name in shock, and Dummy saw Dazai falling to the ground. Dummy angrily shouted Dazai's name and broke the insect's limbs. Then Dummy grabbed the other limb that was inserted into his body and pulled it out. Then Dummy stabbed the insect's eye, which made the insect shout in pain and stabbed Dummy in the heart. Dummy falls into the ground while Gao Peng shouts Dummy name. Gao Peng knows that they need to quickly get out of the stalemate. Although the dream stick's insect looks bleak and bloody because it has lost an eye, it hasn't actually sustained any major injuries because its combat power is still above theirs. Gao Peng wonder what should he do when Stripey, Dazai and Dummy have all suffered injuries of varying degrees. Dazai still stands up, which made Gao Peng shocked and asks Dazai to hit the insect's white spot with his electricity. Dazai hit the insect's white spot, but the insect is still alive. Gao Peng thinks they almost had it, but he thinks it was effective. Then he tells Dummy to distract it, and made Dazai hit it again. On the other hand, the woman called the military and said she had arrived at the scene. Then she asks if she engage or stand by and observe. The person on the other line orders her to exterminate. Then the albatross uses its power on the insect. Gao Peng looked at the beast and saw the monster named Light Albatross, and it was level 38. Gao Peng knows it's the military beast. Then the albatross fly behind the insect, then it grabs the insect and flies away, which made Gao Peng wonder why it flew away just like that. Then Gao Peng fell to the ground and said it's fine if they had continued to fight. They would have been completely annihilated. Meanwhile, in the surveillance room, one military said luckily White Rose was fast enough. Then the other military said Gao Peng isn't bad, and if is not wrong. The two familiars are both commander tier and own 2 commander tier familiars at the young age is quite rare. The captain said trying to defeat the dream stick insect with the 2 commander tier familiars is still too difficult. Then one military asks their captain why he let the White Rose exterminate the insect when, based on initial instructions, they were not allowed to interfere until they received the emergency signal. The captain angrily responded that a candidate has died after all, and the higher-ups need to make sure the number of monster trainers doesn't drastically dwindle. The captain also said it was a mistake. Having good results in a match doesn't mean they can perform well in a real fight in the forest, and they're still too inexperienced. On the other hand, in Sun Mountain Forest, Gao Peng beasts are resting. While Gao Peng checks on Dazai, he notices that the wound had already started to heal and familiars are sure to have great vitality. Gao Peng looked at confused Dazai and said Dazai's flesh looks like the meat of a fish because it's tender. Dazai notices Stripey crying while holding his broken leg. Dazai crawled to Stripey and said he wanted to eat Stripey broken leg. Stripey angrily responded he treat Dazai as his big brother, but he want to eat his leg. Dazai explained that after he eat it, his flesh grow quickly, which made Stripey sad. Then Stripey cried while giving his broken leg to Dazai and tell Dazai if you want to eat, then eat. Behind them, Gao Peng said even after suffering such a severe injury, Dazai still doesn't forget to eat. Gao Peng also said to think Dazai wants to eat Stripey's leg, just who did it take after. Suddenly, his beasts look at him, which made him ask why they're looking at him. Gao Peng and his beasts continue walking while the speaker said candidate Pan Feng is eliminated. Gao Peng said another candidate got eliminated, and then he tells his beasts that they should first find some food for Stripey, then they'll decide what to do next once Stripey sheds its skin and regenerates its leg. The night comes, Gao Peng and his beasts were eating. Gao Peng said a lot of candidates have been eliminated today, and it looks like if he wants to get the highest score, they just need to survive the longest. Gao Peng also said there's actually quite a number of point pillars scattered around the outer edge of the forest. Since everyone is rushing toward the center of the forest, no one will fight him for them, so destroying the ones along the outer edge of the forest will be sufficient enough. Moreover, his beasts needs rest to heal their injuries. They should be careful. Then Gao Peng tells his beasts that they should fight the monsters along the outer edge of the forest as practice for now. Then Gao Peng looked at eating Stripey and said the Roaring Wind Mountain beast that Stripey eating has both wind and earth attributes, and its body is filled with vibrant energy. After eating it in the skin shedding process, Stripey's level should increase to 20. Gao Peng said it was a pity that he didn't have enough time to train Stripey. Although Stripey has good defense compared to familiars of the same level, Stripey was powerless against a commander tier familiar. Stripey's skin has started hardening. The skin shedding process should be complete tomorrow. Then Gao Peng goes to his sleeping bag and tells his beasts that they have worked hard today and they should sleep well. The next day, Stripey's skin shedding process is complete. Stripey happily opened his brand new skin, which made Gao Peng wake up. Gao Peng looked at Stripey and saw that Stripey condition is healthy and excited. Also, Stripey level is 20. Gao Peng said Stripey has completely healed and its leg has regrown too. Gao Peng also said now that Stripey's level has reached 20, it's only one step away from Commander tier, and once Stripey reaches Commander tier, he'll have 3 Commander tier familiars, and with Stripey's defense and crowd control, it'll be able to fill the roles that their team is lacking in. Then Gao Peng happily tells his beasts that they should continue and find more point pillars, which made his familiars excited. Gao Peng and his familiars search for point pillars in the forest. Then Gao Peng pointed a point pillar to Dummy, then Dummy kicked the point pillar in half, which made his teammates proud behind. Gao Peng saw a frog in the pod and wondered why the frog looked so familiar to him. The frog monster's name is a blue-skinned frog and it was level 8. The blue frog grease is normal and its condition is healthy and happy. Also, the frog hobby is sunbathing in peace and its weaknesses are 1. Electric, 2. Hate noise. Gao Peng said the frog's name is similar to the green-skinned frog he saw in the valley. Suddenly, the blue frog spits on him, which made Gao Peng angry and wonder why did the data not show the disgusting hobby of the frogs and the bad habit of spitting become part of the nature of the blue-skinned frogs as well. Suddenly, Gao Peng notices the helicam in the air pointing at him, then he smiled. On the other hand, on the stage, the lady pointed to the screen and asks the audience if they still remember the person behind the flipping salter fish emoticon pack. The lady said Gao Peng has yet to be eliminated and tells the audience that they'll check his current ranking. The ranking showed that Gao Peng is ranked 15 and his score is 1765, which shocked the lady and said that the salted fish monster trainer managed to make it to rank 15. Duan responded that rank 15 is not a bad ranking because currently, only 121 examinees are left in the Sun Mountain Forest, and the top 15 includes the score of those who have been eliminated. Duan also said the requirement for getting to the 3rd round of the exam is to be ranked in the top 15, and Gao Peng is very close right now, he certainly has a chance. The lady awkwardly tells the audience that they should hope Gao Peng can successfully make it to rank 12 just like Duan said, and she changes the topic and said they should take a look at the other higher ranking examinees. Then the screen showed Moi, who is currently in the 2nd rank, and the other examiners. The lady said most of the examinees gained most of their points killing monsters instead of destroying point pillars. After a few days, in the forest, Gao Peng digital bracelet announces that the exam has ended and all the scores will cease to accumulate and will be tallied. Also, all examinees are asked to move to a safe zone and await transportation. Gao Peng exhaustively tells his exhausted beast that the exam is finally over and they can rest now, and he thinks although they hadn't found many point pillars over the last few days, thanks to Stripey succeeding in being promoted to the Commander tier, they were able to kill several Commander tier monster. Also, they gained quite a lot of points as well as many rare materials. Gao Peng said he has done his best regardless of the result, he won't feel any regret, and he believes in the saying do one's best and leave the rest to destiny. Gao Peng ended up ranked 11 with a score of 4,396. After the exam, at the hotel in the base city of Jiangnan, the man tells the examiner that he orders him to try his best to get into the top 12, and if he can participate in the Alliance Youth Monster Trainer General Assembly, it will help him grow and develop in the future. The examiners responded that he tried his best. The examiners said the man should see his performance on TV. Then he called the man's dad and asks him if he can contact someone and see if he can find a way. His dad angrily slams his fist into the chair table. Then he said to his son how he expects him to get him into such a large-scale General Assembly and if he thinks his father is almighty. Then he asks his son when will he start living up to his expectations. His father said right now, many eyes are watching him and the moment he makes a single mistake, they will pounce on him like hungry dogs and tear him apart. Then he orders his son to better keep a low profile over the next few days and don't hang out with those rubbish friends of his, and if he sees him hanging out with his friend again, he will seriously break his good-for-nothing legs. On the other hand, Gao Peng was walking while eating and looking at his phone. Gao Peng wondered why the Youth Monster Trainer General Assembly will be held in 3 months, and he said the performance of the monster trainer candidates was unsatisfactory, so the government has decided to give them 3 months to grow. Now the age limit is 20 years old. Gao Peng said the government is so sloppy and he wonders if the government wants to avoid people turning 20 years old right before the assembly because of the delay. Suddenly Wang called Gao Peng while waving his hand and said he had been looking for Gao Peng for a long time. Then he asks Gao Peng if he want to get dinner because they were all from Chang'an and they should have a get together. Then Wang put his arm around Gao Peng's shoulder and said they should have dinner together, and even Moi, who never smiles, agrees to it, while behind them was angry Moi. Gao Peng laughed awkwardly and responded that he will join, so Wang should let go of him first. Wang shouted they should go and that he know a good seafood restaurant nearby. Suddenly the man asks Gao Peng if they can talk for a bit, but Gao Peng just walks past the man, which made the man shocked. Then he stopped Gao Peng with his hand while holding a card and said the password is 6 sixes, and inside the card, there were around 1 million Alliance credits. Regardless of the outcome of their conversation, the card is the payment for taking up his time. Gao Peng faced the man and said he didn't think his time was worth that much money, but the man just pointed to somewhere and said there's a cafe over there. Gao Peng smiles, said wait a minute, then dummy peeked into the glass looking at the man, which made the man asks what is that. Gao Peng said it was his familiar that has always been cowardly ever since it was young and he have to pat its head every night, otherwise it cannot sleep. Then Gao Peng said it was there looking for him because it couldn't sleep. The man smiled in fear and said Gao Peng is quite cautious, but that's a good thing and one should always be cautious no matter what they are doing. Then Gao Peng and the man proceeds to the coffee shop. At the coffee shop, the man tells Gao Peng that the truth is the reason he came there is to make a deal with him. Gao Peng asks what deal. The man handed a card to Gao Peng and said someone is willing to give Gao Peng a huge sum of money in exchange he will withdraw from the Alliance's strongest youth monster trainer competition, and the sum is definitely larger than the rewards given to the one who will rank first in the competition. And the man also said to show his sincerity, he'll disclose some insider information to Gao Peng, and based on the information that he has received, a monster trainer from the Mei district made a contract with a Lord tier familiar. Basically, that trainer had the favorite for winning the competition, which means even if Gao Peng participated in the youth monster trainer competition, there's basically no chance for him to claim first place, and he asks Gao Peng to give his offer some thought. Gao Peng responded that he was just a poor orphan who lost his parents. Then he asks what's there to be wary of. To think the man employer is willing to pay such a high price looks like they really love their child, which made the man asks if they shall discuss the details. But Gao Peng responded rather than money, he want to have the chance to enter a higher stage. The man angrily asks what Gao Peng means. The man tells Gao Peng to give his offer some more thought because it was an enormous amount. Gao Peng looked at the man angrily and asked if he was too tactful, and he said that mean he refuse. The man responded that it was really a pity. Gao Peng stand up and start to walk away while telling the man to enjoy his coffee, and that it was on him. When Gao Peng finally left, the man called someone. On the other line, the man asked what did Gao Peng say. The man responded while looking at Gao Peng walking outside that Gao Peng rejected the offer and Gao Peng has quite the character because money doesn't work on him. The man gets out of the store while thinking he resolves problems through negotiation. But his client isn't someone who resolves things through words, and Gao Peng is still young. Only after experiencing a few more difficulties will he understand the cruelty of the real world. But either way, that doesn't concern him. After all, he was just a lowly messenger. When the man is finally outside, he was shocked because there's no one outside. Suddenly he hears chains, and when he looks to his left, he saw a man holding his beast in the chain walking toward him. The man was shocked and asks when did the man appear. And when he looks to his right, the other man holding his beast in the chain is walking toward him too. The man thinks he didn't think he would need to use his trump card that soon. Then he wonders who set him up. The two men stopped in front of him and called him Mr. Zhang. The man tells Zhang to stop struggling because his familiar is already in their hands, and the man said they mean him no harm, and he should just need to cooperate. Jang realizes that he can't get in touch with his familiar and it didn't even get the chance to warn him. Jang knows that he's in deep trouble. The man pointed to the door of the coffee shop and tells Jang that someone wants to meet him. Jang goes inside the coffee shop and saw a woman beside the man who asks if he is Mr. Jang. Suddenly, the woman beside the man throws a card at him, but the card sticks into the wall near his face. Jae-hyun apologized to Jang for taking up his precious time. Then Jae-hyun explained that the card has 5 million alliance credits on it and the password is 6 5s. Jae-hyun said it was compensation for his time and he would like to know what Jang said to the innocent and naive child just now. Jang laughed in fear and responded that he just had a little talk with Gao Peng and he wanted to ask Gao Peng to quit the Alliance's strongest youth monster trainer competition. While Jang thinks that the people in front of him are there for Gao Peng and he knows that the people in front of him and Gao Peng have a relationship that isn't ordinary either. According to his research, Gao Peng doesn't have any notable background, so he wonders how Gao Peng is related to someone with status. Jae-hyun angrily asked Jang what Gao Peng answered. Jang responded that Gao Peng declined his offer and Gao Peng said he didn't want to miss an opportunity to expand his horizons. Jang wonders who is the man in front of him in shock. Then he realizes who the man is. Suddenly, Jae-hyun asks what his next step and warned Jang that he don't want to hear any lies. And he was sure that Jang's sister doesn't want to hear that her brother is a liar either because that would set a bad example for the children. Suddenly, the little girl behind Jang called him brother. When Jang looks back, he asks the girl named Zyok Shuan why she is there. Shuan said Jae-hyun said Jang could help her see him because he's always busy and doesn't come home and she hasn't seen him in a long time. Shuan also said that Jae-hyun also asked her to play a game with him to prevent him from discovering Jang, and as long as she could do that, Jae-hyun would buy her 5 ice creams. Then Shuan tells Jang that she'll give him all of her ice creams so Jang will not be angry, it's that just she missed him. Jae-hyun patted Shuan's head and said her brother Jang won't be angry at her because she was a cute little princess, and he have to talk to his brother for a while. Then he asks Shuan to go inside and have some ice cream. Jang worriedly tells Shuan that he won't be angry and she should be a good girl. Then Shuan left the coffee shop. Jang angrily shouted to Jae-hyun that his sister is innocent and she knows nothing. Then Jang asks Jae-hyun what he wants to know and he'll tell him everything. Then he explained that he just had a talk with Gao Peng and he hasn't done anything to him. Jae-hyun responded that that's the reason why he's still standing there and talking to him. Then Jae-hyun sits down while getting his coffee and asks Jang if he wants to work for him. Jang calms down and asks Jae-hyun if he's not going to kill him. Jae-hyun responded that no matter where they come from, as long as they're people, they have value, and killing them is the simplest, but also the most wasteful method. Then he asks Jang to continue. Jang confessed everything to Jae-hyun and Jae-hyun said the mayor of the base city of Jinling named Han Yuanamik. Jae-hyun also said when he received information that someone was investigating Gao Peng, he always assumed it was something big, but to think it would be for such a reason. Then the lady beside Jae-hyun asks him if they should get rid of Hyun. Jae-hyun said no and that they should leave Hyun for Gao Peng to handle himself. The incident occurred because of Gao Peng, so he'll be the one to end it and it'll give Gao Peng a sense of accomplishment. However, Jae-hyun said there's one thing that he agrees with Jang, that is Gao Peng taking part in the competition is really a waste of his time, which made Jang confused. Jae-hyun stands up and looks outside while thinking it's been 4 years since Gao Peng and he last met. On the other hand, Gao Peng was looking outside at his room window glass and wondering who is behind the offer. Then he lay on his bed and said he'll think about that tomorrow. Since he rejected their offer, he was sure they would definitely move on to their next plan, and he'll worry about it when the time comes. Suddenly, someone knocked on his door room, which made Gao wonder why his enemy moved so fast. Then he walked beside his door and asks who is knocking. The person behind the door said it's not good for a young man to constantly oversleep while the doorknob turning. Then someone opened the door. Gao Peng was shocked because he remembered the voice, and when he looked up, Jae-hyun, his grandfather, was in front of him greeting him long time no see. Gao Peng hugged his grandfather while his grandfather told him that he haven't seen him in years and he had grown taller. Then Gao Peng made his grandfather sit. Jae-hyun said he saw Gao Peng's performance during the competition. Then he praised Gao Peng for being great, smart, and courageous. Gao Peng shyly responded that he wasn't strong enough and that he could only scout for point pillars on the periphery. Jae-hyun said being able to preserve oneself is the greatest success, and there's nothing to be ashamed of because he was just like him when he first started the Southern Sky Group. He also took a step back on certain matters, but he is back now, and as long as he's there, no one will ever bully him. Then Gao Peng asks his grandfather if there is anything he can help him with the group, and he said he has a lot of experience in training familiars. Jae-hyun responded that only a few minor characters are still struggling and they can't do any harm to the group. Then Jai Hyun said they should talk about something else. Then he said someone tried to make Gao Peng withdraw from the competition, and it was the mayor of Jinling-based city, named Han Yuanming, and he know Gao Peng refused him, but he has more than one way to disqualify him from the competition, and asking him was just him showing him courtesy before the war. Gao Peng said if that was the mayor then that's a bit troublesome. Then he asks his grandfather what kind of war. Jai Hyun responded that first, he'll ruin his reputation, Han find a girl who will invite him to a meal, then after he and the girl finish the meal, something will happen, and then she'll accuse him of raping her. Then Han will spread rumors, and Gao Peng, a good child with no background, will never be able to depend on himself against such rumors. Then when enough people believe Han, the rumors will become the truth, and they will stick with him for the rest of his life. Then Jai Hyun hopes that Gao Peng can avenge himself and he will help him with all his might, but he thinks it's good to have that as motivation to push Gao Peng himself. Gao Peng thanked his grandfather and said he will remember. Jai Hyun asks Gao Peng if he remembers his words or remembers the person, which made Gao Peng shyly laugh. Then Jai Hyun said they should talk about the main topic. Jai Hyun seriously tells Gao Peng that he hopes Gao Peng is willing to give up on the Alliance Youth Monster Trainer General Assembly. Gao Peng immediately agreed and said he'll contact the organizer tomorrow. Jai Hyun smiled and asked Gao Peng why he's not objecting when is making him give up such a big opportunity. Gao Peng responded that he was sure that his grandfather had a reason, but he have to listen to what Jai Hyun had to say first. Jai Hyun stand up and called him a little rascal. Then Jai Hyun walked toward the window glass while telling Gao Peng that Gao Peng knows that it has only been 3 years since the cataclysm, so the gap between individuals isn't actually that big. Age does not bring anyone any advantages. Whether a person is 30, 46, or 50 years old, everyone is standing at the starting line. Then Jai Hyun faced Gao Peng and asked him if he knows why he must go and seek the title of the strongest youth monster trainer, but isn't it better to remove the word youth? Gao Peng shockingly asks if his grandfather is talking about the strongest monster trainer. Jai Hyun agreed and said the strongest monster trainer. It's a different era, an era for the ambitious. Although the Alliance controls the overall situation right now, it is only temporary. Then one day a conflict will arise. Gao Peng asks his grandfather what he was saying. Jai Hyun said if a person could command familiars to destroy mountains and hills, to stir up rivers and oceans, would he still be satisfied with normality, and would he be satisfied with his current position? Then Jai Hyun said a human's greed is always proportional to their capabilities. Gao Peng thinks he can't imagine what the future will be like when such a day arrives. Then Jai Hyun put his hand on Gao Peng's shoulder and tells Gao Peng that he should strive to make himself stronger, and that participating in the strongest youth monster trainer kind of competition will only waste his time because a man should be more ambitious. Gao Peng said he have a question. Then he said when such a day arrives, there'll be strong people who will be willing to maintain order, but there'll also exist a bunch of people who want to destroy the order. Then Gao Peng asks Jai Hyun if he wishes to maintain the order or not. Jai Hyun smiled and called Gao Peng silly. Then he tells Gao Peng that he will protect him. Then Jai Hyun tells Gao Peng that he knows that deep in his heart, is not happy about withdrawing from the competition, so he had a plan. In 3 months, when the competition start, he'll recommend that he participate in the competition as a judge. This made Gao Peng confused, but Jai Hyun said he can help him fight for his spot. But whether he gets it will depend on him, so he needs to work hard for the next 3 months. Gao Peng realizes that participating in his current competition is indeed pointless, but to take part as a judge is interesting. When the competition starts, the participants will be very happy to see a former competitor as their judge. A few days later, at Chang'an-based city airport lobby, Gao Peng and his familiars arrive in their hometown. Gao Peng thinks he was finally home, but he wonders if a place without family is still considered home. Also, he thinks after settling some matters there, he'll be heading straight over to Yuzhou, and he thinks it'll be better to apply to Yuzhou University. He has the system, so which university he goes to doesn't really matter. Although he can't really help his grandfather, it's better to stay close to his elderly. Suddenly Gao Peng's phone rang, and on the other line, Feng Zhu asks if he's back from Jiangnan and if he was free because there is something he needs his help with and it's something good. Gao Peng agreed and said he have some business to attend to at the association anyway, but Feng Zhu said he already left the Monster Breeder Association. Gao Peng asks why did he leave the Monster Breeder Association. Feng Zhu responded that the organization has changed. It's no longer the Monster Breeder Association that he loved working for, and the Monster Breeder Association is now a subsidiary of the Monster Training League, but the Monster Trainer League alas, and Feng Zhu said they shouldn't talk about it. Then Feng Zhu said he's working for the military right now and there's a lot to be done. Then he asks Gao Peng if he's interested. Also, Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng that he can't pay him much for it, but he can make up for it with rare materials. Gao Peng tells Feng Zhu to feel free to get straight to the point, and if it's within his abilities, he'll do his best to help. Feng Zhu said Gao Peng probably heard of the Shachuaman man-eating earthworms migrating over the Dali Desert. Recently, a monster hunting squad discovered that within the colony, a commander-tier Shachuaman man-eating earthworm is about to evolve to Lord tier. Gao Peng asks if the military is preparing to capture a Shachuaman man-eating earthworm on the brink of reaching Lord tier. Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng not to worry because they won't be taking part in the battle between Lord tier monsters, and all they do is prevent other monsters from interfering while the earthworm is in the midst of evolving. Gao Peng smiled and said Dali Desert already has a Lord tier desert ruler. Although the Dali Desert has gotten bigger since the Cataclysm, it's definitely not big enough to house 2 Lord monsters. When the time comes, a huge battle will erupt, and it seems like the Chang'an military is preparing to reap the spoils of the battle. Which made Stripey sad. Gao Peng tells Stripey that he's not talking about him. Then Gao Peng asks Feng Zhu why did he comes to him, and he asks if aren't there much stronger trainers within the military. Feng Zhu responded that the plan was proposed by him, but the upper brass of the military didn't like it, so he can only rely on his own connections. But he tells Gao Peng not to worry because there shouldn't be too much danger. Feng Zhu also said he has a few military trainers on his side, and if the plan goes well in the end, the Golden Deity itself will personally lend them a hand. Gao Peng said seem like Feng Zhu is not doing so well since joining the military, but Feng Zhu just laugh awkwardly. Then Gao Peng agree and ask when will the earthworm be evolving. Feng Zhu shouted in happiness and said the earthworm evolving will be within the next 2 days. Then he said he owe Gao Peng one, so Gao Peng should feel free to come to him if he ever needs his help. Gao Peng said he should join in the fun and he'll be waiting for Feng Zhu's notice. Gao Peng hung up while thinking a battle of that level is way beyond his capabilities, and if he goes, all he can do is watch. But if he wants to become stronger, he'll have to observe a fight between the strong and expand his horizons. Gao Peng was fetched by Tang Tang and Fat Flamey, which made Gao Peng ask why the fat penguin is with her, but after a second he realized it was Flamey. 2 days after, at Chang'an outskirts, Gao Peng said their destination is not very far and they haven't threaded into the Dark Ember Forest yet. The part of the forest they are currently in is still considered as the periphery. Feng Zhu said any further in and they will be in the territory of the Lord of the Dark Ember, and the Lord has always had a bad temper. It'd be bad to provoke it. Gao Peng looked at Tang Tang familiar and said he didn't know she had such a strong beast. The beast monster was named Shadow Japalura and its was level 39. The Japalura grade is perfect and its ability is Hardened Skin level 2. The Japalura special characteristic is Shadow Assassin, effect 1. The passive effect is when Japalura is silent and still, it will perfectly blend in with its surroundings, matching both color and body temperature to its surrounding. Effect 2. The passive effect is that Japalura's special skin allows it to absorb sound as well as vibrations, allowing it to move silently and remain almost undetectable. Gao Peng said Japalura attributes look frightening and he now finally understands why his grandfather sent her to him. And in the contrast to the helpers Feng Zhu brought, the guy introduced himself as Lai King. Lai King familiars are a level 24 thorny iron hide boar and a level 21 poison-blooded green snake. The other helper Feng Zhu brought is named Kinny. Kinny familiar is flaming bird level 27. Gao Peng wondered if Lai King, Kinny, and Zhang's names were wordplay, while Silly imitated him. Feng Zhu said they arrive at Earthworm territory and they shouldn't head in any further. Then he said right before a breakthrough in a level is when a monster is most cautious, and they must not provoke it. Gao Peng looked at it and asked in shock why are so many earthworms. But Feng Zhu told them that they might not need to do anything in the end and the Shachuaman man-eating earthworms will naturally protect their leader. While they hiding, Gao Peng asks Feng Zhu if the Lord of the Dark Ember's actual name is Lord of the Dark Ember. Feng Zhu responded no and explained that they call it that because it's currently occupying the entire Dark Ember forest. After all, not all Lord tier monsters have a territory. For instance, if that desert ruler were to occupy the Dali Desert for a long enough period of time, maybe they'd start calling it Lord of the Dali instead. Then Feng Zhu tells everyone to be careful because there will definitely be monsters that'll use the opportunity to launch sneak attacks. Gao Peng tells Feng Zhu that something's coming. Then they saw a huge rooster running toward the earthworms. Gao Peng was shocked to see a huge rooster, which made Feng Zhu laugh and explained that chickens eat earthworms and the soon-to-be Lord tier earthworm is just too tempting for the rooster. Then the rooster jumps toward the earthworms while Feng Zhu asks Gao Peng to look at the rooster, and he explains that by relying on its inborn nature, the 5-colored golden rooster can easily bypass the earthworm's defense. Then the rooster jumped by each of the small earthworms on the ground to pass by, but when the rooster arrived at the end, it was confused at finding the big earthworms. Gao Peng imitated the chicken and asked where are the fat, juicy earthworms, which made Tang Tang laugh. Feng Zhu responded that the earthworms can dig underground. The commander tier earthworm should be hiding underground while it's promoting, so it's normal to not be able to find it. Then Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng that he had talent, but he still has so much needs to learn. Gao Peng didn't answer, but he knows Feng Zhu is an elite of the monster breeder industry and he will be caught if he acts too experienced. Suddenly the ground around the rooster shake, then the earthworm underground showed itself and caught the rooster's feet. When the chicken tried to fly away, the other earthworms helped the earthworm who caught the chicken's leg. Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng that once the earthworms worked together, the rooster couldn't escape even if it wanted to. Then the rooster was slammed to the ground. Then the earthworms launched to the rooster and eat it. Gao Peng disappointedly said the rooster really sucks at combat, but Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng to relax because it was just the beginning. Suddenly Tang Tang signed them to be quiet, then she said the big one was coming. The monster named Horrifying Violent Female Spider showed itself. It was level 40.5 and its attribute is rock. The spider's weaknesses are 1. Wood type, 2. Septic Bloodberry and 3. Platinum Radish Tendril. Also, its ability is Spider Silk Strengthening level 2 and Toughened Skin level 1. Gao Peng said the spider's stats are a bit familiar to him. The spider screamed, then it walked toward the earthworms, killing whatever was in its way. Gao Peng said the female spider is probably the same one that Mr. Liu and the others fought when they led a crusade against the net of the brutal gray devil spiders. And if he recalls correctly, the mission failed and many people died. But they managed to interrupt the female spider's promotion, so it's a deformed, half-promoted Lord tier. Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng is correct and he said the military thought it'd be killed by the Lord of the Dark Ember, but to think it's still alive, he said how thoughtless of him. Then Feng Zhu tells Gao Peng that they should try their best to stall for time. Gao Peng asked Feng Zhu if he was serious because even though the spider is a deformed half-promoted Lord tier, it's still a Lord tier nonetheless. Gao Peng looked at Tang Tang while asking Feng Zhu if he wants them to go against it. But in his mind, he thinks maybe they still have a chance. Tang Tang walked toward Feng Zhu and said they can take action. But the price is the horrifying violent female spider that made Feng Zhu shocked. Feng Zhu said they just need to stop the female spider and defeating it might be a bit too difficult for their level. But Tang Tang just turned around and said Gao Peng and she shall attack the spider and the rest of them should stay alert and prevent other monsters from interfering. Leaving Feng Zhu to wonder how Gao Peng's sister has a familiar with a rare camouflaging ability because in the military, whoever's lucky enough to get a hold of that kind of familiar will immediately be given priority training and he knows she isn't some ordinary person. Gao Peng tells Tang Tang to let Dummy help her. She agrees and orders Dummy to stand behind her. Then she tells Gao Peng to be alert to his surroundings. Feng Zhu said they also helping but Tang Tang responded that they'll only mess things up. Feng Zhu sadly tells her that she can't be biased. She let go of Softy and Softy changes its form to combat form while she orders it to test the spider out.